Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Public Management Academy, cohort number 6, day 2 of project presentations. I'm back again in the world headquarters and a bright sunny day, and it's going to be a lovely day as we continue the strong momentum from this awesome cohort. I just wanted to say I was reflecting overnight on what we witnessed yesterday from the start to finish. Just an amazing day. And I think as far as raising the bar, we can definitely see from cohort to cohort as time goes by that the programs and the projects are starting to elevate really rapidly. And it's really exceeding my expectations. And I'm just honored and proud to be part of this. Really so proud of what you all are accomplishing. And this concept of, or the analogy of a tsunami of change and innovation, I guess is what the best way that I could put it. Just that we're just creating this whole cohort of change agents and want this momentum to continue not only through the program, but also as you go back after the program to be champions within your organization. So just excited, and I know that we have a great lineup for today. We're finishing on a high note. We're saving some amazing projects that will continue the momentum which we created yesterday, and I hope that will take us into the future for PMA 7 and 8 and 9 as the next generation comes through, that they can build on what you all accomplished. A couple notes before we get started. It'll be the same routine as yesterday. We will have the individual unique evaluation links that Alexandra will post for you to click on. And so we've already sent out a bunch of links and feedback from yesterday. Alexandra sent it out yesterday, but we will have individual links to continue today. So anybody in attendance is welcome to participate in that. We want everyone's feedback. So obviously the cohort members, but also guests as well. So please click on those individual links during the presentation, and we'll get the feedback back to those individuals. Again, we want your feedback at the end of each presentation. We'd love to have any kind of commentary, questions, any kind of thoughts or suggestions or things like that. Anything for the good of the order, anything that you would like to share. So please put that in the Q&A box. Please type your responses in the Q&A, and then Alexandra will facilitate that part. The chat box is disabled, so please use the Q&A to display any kind of information or pass along any kind of commentary or questions. We will be running today from 8:30 this morning until just before 2 o'clock this afternoon. So we'll be finishing up early so that you can get onto your weekend. And really just want to say great job. We will talk at the end of the day about the next steps for the written report, but I don't want to get into that right now. Just remember that we're here to support each other, and this is part of the process, and the momentum doesn't end here. I want to put a quick plug in for Leadership Academy 31. So if you want to continue on with the journey, that will also start in October of this year, 2021. So that will be coming out soon with more information. So anyway, without further ado, I'd like to bring up our first group for the day. Our first project of the day comes from our friends Jennifer Kuzma and Michael Malice, and they are working on a project that I think is really timely for what's going on in our contemporary situation with this pandemic, and just the concept of work-life balance. So their topic is improving work-life balance for municipal employees. And before we bring them up and before I pass the baton, I just in particular want to shout out Jennifer Kuzma for her efforts in helping us to expand the program, market it across the region, and invite a lot of her stakeholders to participate in this cohort. And as you saw from yesterday, we had some amazing presentations, and that specifically several of those folks were the result of Jennifer's marketing efforts. So I just want to say thanks to you, Jennifer. Appreciate the partnership and look forward to continue as we move forward. So without further ado, over to Jennifer and Michael.
All right, good morning, everyone. As Rob mentioned, my name is Mike Malice, and I'm here with Jennifer Kuzma, and we're going to be talking about improving the work-life balance for municipal employees. I think the fact that all of us are here presenting our projects in the fashion that we are remotely, it says a lot about all of our work environment today. And obviously this is much different than anything in the past. And it's taken a pandemic to bring that to light. You can see some of the stats here that are pretty significant, especially with the amount of people who are now preferring to continue with remote work possibilities. And in the private field, this has been a common practice. I mean, not across the board, but it is more common than municipal government. And that's kind of one of the things that we wanted to touch on. As far as remote work, flexible scheduling, being at home, where does municipal government stand with this? From the national side of things, and we did some research, and the ICMA is a tremendous resource. It's the International City Managers Association. You can see some of the percentages, the significant percentage since 2016, where both state and local government employees, they have increased over close to 27%. But a lot of it is because of COVID. COVID's altered the landscape of how government conduct their business. I think primarily, and one of the biggest challenges across the board, what we're seeing, and this is both private and public, is being able to create a desirable workplace, both to attract and retain good quality professionals. There's some very interesting data that Jen was able to come across in our research and surveys. Actually, there was one piece that really stuck out where 35% of people would actually prefer a flex schedule, remote work possibilities over a more prestigious title. And I think that shows you what people in today's workforce, what they desire. There was also some staggering numbers as far as those that are given the opportunity to have remote work possibilities and flexible scheduling. 80% of those said they would definitely be more loyal to their municipality and state agency who trusted in them to work in that manner. So there's really staggering numbers that are showing what people prefer in today's age. But it comes to, it's one thing to say we want to offer those, but who can? And, IT is a huge issue. And it's actually been a major stumbling block for a lot of municipalities to just say, yes, go work remote. Well, it's got to be able, there's a lot that goes into that. And there's some more information later in the presentation where we'll touch on that a little further. As far as the pandemic and what those financial impacts were to local governments, and that's what I'm going to talk briefly on. Initially, across the board, numerous communities were forced to make some very tough decisions. Last March, we knew what the financial impact, many of us, we knew it wouldn't be good. We didn't know what the extent of that would be. And many were forced to obviously reduce their workforce. Be it you saw parks and recreation departments not opening, thus a reduction in workforce, housing departments, seasonal staffs. Right here in Cuyahoga County, county offices were under working through furloughs. And that is a major challenge. I mean, listen, anytime there's a reduction in workforce, there is the direct result of that is there's going to be a reduction in services. That's just the way it goes. And the public suffers from that. And, the other thing is just from a perception side, and Jen, made a great point just the other day where we added this, you see our cities that each of us live in. And if you see them laying off or reducing staffing, if you see some of these tough decisions that I think no one would disagree with, you start wondering, well, is my city okay? Are we in trouble? Do I need to relocate or what is the status here? And those are really, really tough decisions. But it was what a lot of municipalities faced over the last 18 months. They were forced to reduce their workforce. One, because of the unproductive hours, if people were sent home, trying to close city halls and office spaces for safety reasons, and obviously preparing for the financial impact. As far as Bedford, we took a separate approach. I've often said that I've been very, very lucky to be surrounded by the administrative team that we have here. Actually it was late February, we established kind of a working team of about 12 to 15 of us who met 3 times a week. And we really identified 3 primary goals. And those goals were obviously, we wanted to make sure that we were taking the steps needed to absorb this impact from financial standpoint. We were adamant that we were going to maintain our workforce. We didn't want to have to lay off, furlough any employees whatsoever, because we wanted to maintain our services that we pride ourselves on. And then obviously third, and probably one of the most important, is how do we help the public? Well, there's a lot of things that come into play there. How do we, with people being at home, how do we become more user-friendly? How does City Hall become more user-friendly? While at the same time, we have to make sure that we have a safe working environment for not only the public, but our staff as well. And it was challenging. It was tricky. But our staff did a tremendous job. I mean, we shifted our focus in March of 2020, and we knew what we had to do, and that was what many refer to as, we knew we had to go remote. And we immediately worked with our outside IT company. We brought in laptops. They were mirrored with desktops. Security protocols were put in place with staff that were at home. Surprisingly, and I'll be the first to admit, my administrative assistant is home even to today, 3 days a week. And you don't even, other than chatting around coffee in the morning, you don't even realize it. I mean, I ask her for a letter, she prints it out, and it's coming right in my office. All of those links were set up, and it went more smoothly than I could have ever imagined. And one of the things that we were concerned about, that some of our staff brought up in those planning the meetings, was, we wanted to make sure there wasn't a disconnect either. Yes, people being at home, but being disconnected was definitely a concern. And we're going to touch on that later on a little bit. There was some interesting data that came over regarding surveys, but we set up regular meetings, if it was Zoom, all of those things, just to make sure that interaction continued. And then, one department that we'll touch on a little bit more is our building department. We operated with three clerks in that department, and one of those clerks made the decision to retire in August, to take us down to 2. And it was a concern, but I don't think anybody really expected, we made a huge change to go remote. We were, rotating schedules for those that would come in and not. And that department is working more efficiently and more productively with 2 people being remote, splitting shifts, than when we had 3 people in the office. And that was something that was very, very, it was a welcome surprise, Obviously, there were other factors that came into that specific instance regarding the building department. And one of those things, probably the main reason that that was able to be accomplished, what is specifically geared towards software. And I'm going to turn it over to Jen real quick, who will talk a little bit about that.
Thanks, Mike. Good morning, everyone. Jennifer Kuzma, Director of the First Suburbs Consortium. For those of you who don't know, the consortium is a council of governments that supports 19 of the inner ring cities that surround Cleveland. We meet in a bunch of different ways, but the piece that I'm going to speak to you about today is a leap we took a few years ago to do regionalized code enforcement software together. You know, incredibly sexy and very exciting, I know. But much like the other presentations yesterday, it's a very needed function that government performs. Through regular meetings of our housing committee, this is housing directors and inspectors and people who are involved. And I would say the nuts and bolts and some of the social issues that involved with housing. We really began to speak a lot about the lack of inefficiencies that we were seeing in our building departments. You know, we'd have inspectors go out in the field and literally write up an inspection on paper and pen, hand that report off to a clerk who a few days later would get it typed up and sent to the property owner. And, you know, these just weren't efficient ways to run departments. You know, people were looking for much more immediate response. As we started to talk a little bit more, we saw that very few of the cities had online access to our building departments. You know, you couldn't get your permit online. You couldn't do any of your contractor registrations or even project reviews. You know, they're just really, it was, you had to come into City Hall. That was the only option. And during the pandemic, this tool was what really saved a lot of the building departments and allowed them to continue to keep up on that day-to-day work. We knew we had some poor communication with the county and state. You know, there's a lot of reports that our building department sends to the county on a regular basis and to the state. And quite honestly, I found out through these discussions that one of our communities was actually still in 2018, still faxing in information. There was no electronic communication at all. We knew that this presented a regional opportunity. You know, there was a way for us to kind of, you know, lock elbows and come at this together. And it was also a chance to control some of the increasing costs we were experiencing in our building departments. You know, software updates were very expensive, and there's a very limited qualified staff pool. You know, I often say that once one inspector moves in one city, it starts this entire dance where they all kind of move to a different city, and someone ends up losing in the end and is short staffed. So as we talked more, we saw that there was really a chance to come together and accomplish this goal of bringing efficiencies and better service through our building departments. And we had time together, which really gave us a great built-in trust. Everyone walked in comfortable with one another, having been through years of meetings together. We really didn't second guess what anyone's motives were. What else was great about working with the team was everyone brought something different to the table. You know, we had our young IT genius, and we had our seasoned inspector who knew every, you know, ORC and building code off the top of his head. So we had all these different angles covered that had we worked individually, we would have never been able to bring to the table. This was a great exercising in sharing the risk and really sharing the reward. I will tell you that we left those early meetings and people would look at me after the meeting and say, are we really doing this? Are we really going to put out an RFQ and see what we get? Yeah. And I literally would keep saying to them, let's just keep swimming. Let's just keep swimming. And each month we got a little bit closer to the goal. This program also gave us a lot of great opportunities to go after grants. The Cuyahoga County gave us our first year of the code enforcement software fee, about $250,000, which was a great way for the cities to start this endeavor. We also are very grateful to the Cleveland Foundation. They gave us about $75,000, one to look at how we could do this together, and a second one to then implement it. And we bought all of our field technology, so our inspectors are out in the field working on tablets. The other piece I really like about this is the group buying and the lobbying opportunities. You know, when we've got 6 cities, now 10 cities actually working together on this system. When we call that software company and say we're having issues, boy, they sure listen to us, instead of just one community call and being a buzzing bug around the head. So after 4 years, I've got a lot of good lessons learned. You know, we're seeing incredible efficiency with less staff, as Mike mentioned. Again, guys are out in the field doing inspections, entering that information right into a software system that's immediately emailing a report to the property owner and contractor. Because the cities are growing their own system, they're really embracing this. You know, when you build something yourself, your sense of ownership is really deep. We're getting back to people quicker. We're getting questions answered faster, and we're also staying on task. The system immediately requires you to set up next appointments on a property. So, you know, you don't lose touch with those projects that are still laying out there. And it's also allowing us to talk about how we could maybe share staff, how we could look at this and go some more steps. Some of the savings I've mentioned before, Mike also touched on, you know, here in Bedford, we're saving about $60,000 a year, having to not replace that clerk. And cities are also seeing that in even more fold. What's great is the county is also actively involved with us in the software, and they're actually using some of our information as they go through the appraisal process right now. We've seen, again, better information from the cities to the county. We've grown. We've now got 10 communities participating with us, and we're continuing to learn from one another. One of the great things about this is I continue to call this group to meet on a quarterly basis, and we talk about how we're using the system and what's working, what's not. It's allowed us to grow into another project. We're working together to bring GIS to our cities as well. And we got a lot of great PR on this project, you know, for both our communities and the county. And what mayor doesn't love a couple of good PR pieces? We had some great coverage in the Plain Dealer. Myself and the county also presented on the Idea Stream show. So it's just been a great way to really plug the program and promote working together.
Jen, or earlier in the conversation, we talked about us working with our IT company, and we outsource this. We have a contract with a company called Simplex IT. And surprisingly, you know, nothing that we went after or solicited, but they contacted us in, I want to say it was last August, and they wanted to do a case study on Bedford. And it was primarily because not only did they help us kind of transition to what we knew we needed to do. You know, we needed to go remote. We knew we needed to bring our IT operations forward. You know, in the future, we knew we had to have a different way of thinking. There was a lot that went into that. You know, I talked about security issues. You know, it's not as simple as just logging on at home. How do we mirror desktops? How do we make sure we set up city council? You know, those are challenges. They're different. You know, some people aren't as tech savvy as others, and making sure it worked across the board what was imperative. And like I said, it went much more smoothly than I had anticipated. But one of the other reasons that Simplex, you know, they wanted to do this this case study was what they also found very, very interesting. And what I mentioned earlier is those savings. You know, by reducing our staff, and we only reduced it in the building department, with the staff that retired, we saved from salary and you know, health coverage about $65,000 a year. That was saved. Now, it wasn't something that you know, went just back into the city coffers. We actually were looking at other departments. We knew we needed to make some improvements in the police department that had a direct, you know, that involved staffing. So the savings that were generated here by really thinking, you know, more progressively, thinking of how are we going to change the way we do business, resulted in these savings. And it allowed us, without raising our budget, it allowed us to reallocate, almost $70,000 to the police department and fill those needs. And all of this was a result of just, like I said, it's really shifting the way we conduct business and really the way we think, the mindset that we can do these things, that are often seen being done in the private industry.
One of the pieces that was really important to Mike and I as we were going through this project was to really see what was going on like hyper locally. And having had the ability to reach out to for suburb cities, we put together one survey that went to our mayors. We wanted to know, as the employer, what their work from home experience was. And we also surveyed the employees to learn more about what their experience was like.
So some of it, and there's a couple of things that kind of contradict each other a little bit, but you can see some of the information, and this is from the mayors and managers side of things. 50% indicated that they did not offer remote work, flex scheduling prior to. You can see obviously they shifted after that. But that third bullet point there was something that we experienced, and almost all of the responses that we received, all of them indicated that there was an increase in productivity. And if it was a result of shorter meetings, whatever those things are, I mean, those were some glaring results that came out of that. I think there's online options. They offer better opportunities for education opportunities for staffing. I mean, honestly, this is, this kind of platform that we're all working through with this course. From a personal standpoint, being able to do it remote like this made it much easier for me personally to be engaged and attend and do this. I think it would be much more difficult if it was like in every course or every day, being in person, the traveling, that would be difficult. We've seen other scenarios like that where we had some staff do some continuing education where it was easier. It was easier, and those are some things that that went well. The one other thing I want to mention is we had seen earlier on, when we talk about reduction in staff and what some cities were forced to do, there were a lot of cities that they saw projects or they saw some initiatives that they were working on. They just got shelved. Last year wasn't a time to focus on that. I can say that from Bedford's standpoint, we had 3 projects that probably would have been shelved. And they're not. We're actually wrapping them up now because, we assigned some of these, and some of them are small projects, rolling out a Century Home program for homeowners in Bedford, all the way to completely giving a refresh to our HR policy manual, having staff members at home, being able to focus on that uninterrupted. We're actually wrapping up those projects this year. And I think those normally would have been shelved, to be honest with you.
From the employee side, we learned a lot too. And I will say, most of the people who responded to this were probably unhappy with what their experience was. So just interesting to note that. You can read the list here of what some of the biggest challenges were and what some of the biggest benefits were. I think the piece that I saw as the biggest benefit was it was so much easier to attend webinars and other seminars. And as I'm applying for new grants that I would have never applied for on behalf of the city, and I'm speaking to those granting agencies, they're saying we're getting bigger response than we've ever gotten before. And I really think that's because there's just more time to focus on those things. Also interesting to note that, people really are wanting to see employers offer work from home option, and they're really going to be looking for that in future employment opportunities. I think not only does it offer flexibility initially, but it also shows what the culture of that organization is. And I think that says a lot to choices you'll be making in your profession.
Looking at how, as leaders, how can we offer a better work-life balance? I think, and Jen touched on, the second bullet point early in our discussions, and she was spot on. And it's really shifting that mindset to, I work for the city, I'm there 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and that's my requirement. Shifting that thought process from that Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, to really a performance accomplishment or your overall body of work. Shifting that mindset, I think, is imperative. You obviously have to have crucial buy-in from elected officials, staff, and the public, and being open and honest about some of the things which is exactly kind of what we did early on. We had information that were out to the public. We had indicated some staff were in the office during certain days and hours, whereas the other days they're at home. Being open about that. The last thing anybody wants to have is the public come in, they don't know the hours or they don't know someone's schedule. They try to meet with someone and then they're complaining to a council member. That just doesn't look good. The one thing with local government and public service is, you must be transparent. You must be open with the plan, and obviously answer all questions and concerns that would come up. But getting that buy-in, I think, is imperative. And the other thing, skipping down, I think this is a huge opportunity for current leadership, current management to transition this mindset. Rob, early on, you talked about the next generation of leaders coming through the cohorts. A lot of local governments have an aging workforce, a lot of retirements coming up. And it's imperative that not only do we retain the good talent that we have, but it's just as important to be able to attract that talent. And I think today's leaders really need to have an open mind, shift this mindset, and really lay the foundation moving forward. That last bullet point, I had the mentors that I've worked under, they always told me, listen, surround yourself with good people and the city will do great things. And I've been blessed, as I said, to have the staff that we have here. But it's vital that, we keep them. It's vital that when one retires, we can retain or attract someone just as good as they are.
We put together a list of what we thought were some policies that communities could consider if they wanted to make some improvement in this area. And they kind of start at easiest and go to hardest. Such an easy thing to give your employees is just dress for your day. Let people come to work a little bit more comfortably, always professionally. But, I think gives people a lot of just comfort in where they're at, and really allows you a little bit of flexibility in your life that some days means a lot.
Yeah. Flex time's another topic. We actually in Bedford, we were talking about this plan in 2019. We met with the staff as far as trying to implement a flex schedule, almost like shared shifts with other individuals in your department. And our plan was to see how kind of a test run. Our plan was going to be from Memorial Day to Labor Day. We would see how it worked. If what didn't work, what do we need to improve on, and would we continue it long term? And then obviously we all know what happened last February, March. We shifted to that plan, and we went remote and went from there.
The other piece I just wanted to mention, I thought it was interesting. Friends of mine in the private sector said they've recently been given what's called permissive vacation, and it allows you to select your time. Obviously you have to get it approved, but it gives the perception to the employee that they get to really make a lot more choices in what their day looks like. And what's interesting to note is some of those people who are actually more administrative in the private sector said, we're saving a lot of money because people aren't taking as much vacation time as they normally would, and no one's carrying over any time. So we're not owing anyone any payouts at the end of the year. again, just some list of ideas.
We're open to any questions. I hope everyone enjoyed the presentation and our thoughts as far as how do we shift local governments moving forward and to really help with the work-life balance of our employees.
Well, I think you guys did a great job. So I've been doing this. I've been around the block a few times with these kind of programs, right? I used to have hair. I was about 40, 50 pounds lighter when I started, but some of the things that I remember when I first started was that folks were putting all their information on a 3-ring binder. And then all of a sudden this computer came around where they wanted to transfer to an Excel spreadsheet. They're like, oh, we're not doing that. I ain't using those computer things, and you're not going to do that. And then all of a sudden, it was like websites came available. And it's like, are you going to start moving some of your municipal services, to a website? Oh, we're not doing that. We're City Hall. We don't have to get. And then all of a sudden, Citizen Serve showed up, which I know, Jennifer, we're involved with that. So my point is, I've seen these iterations over the year where the government sector seems to be pushed into or eventually embraces these new technologies and these new opportunities. And every time, it might take a while for it to be adopted and adapted, but every time that they do, you find these efficiencies and the performance and the outcomes are just beneficial. So to me, I feel like we're right in the middle of that next wave. Like we're literally experiencing it as we speak of how that shift is going to happen. And so I guess my question to you is, to both of you, you're going to have to be trailblazers in this regard. I know from a political perspective, there might be some pushback. Like Mike, you mentioned about, oh, well, City Hall, we have to make sure that the neighbors aren't upset that Sally Mae is sitting at home instead of working. How are you planning to take this on as far as from a political perspective, from the pushback or any kind of negative from residents, constituents, partners, things like that? What's your plan for those kind of things?
Well, early on, we were, like I said, we were very transparent. We had information that was going out regularly to the public. If it was in many different ways, we had, if it was email blasts, we had notifications on social media, notifications on our website, but we also had mailings that went out and small newsletters that went out in all of our residents' water bills. And we really explained to them the process. Everybody was available at the same phone numbers because our staff that worked remote that might be sitting out in Brook Park or Chardon or Brecksville, wherever they were at, or right here in Bedford, if you called their line at their office, it would be ringing where they're at. You can get a hold of them. They'll help you. They're responsive via email. All of that was really conveyed to them. And we're going to continue that. We have a couple of upcoming special, what we call ward meetings, where we meet with the individual city wards and residents. And we're going to be kind of explaining some of these changes that we're making at those meetings. And, I've often said, and it's been said to me, and if you're transparent and if you're open and upfront from the start, people will understand that. They might not necessarily agree with the decision or not, but they'll understand that. If you're not, and you try to kind of just, well, this is what we're doing and not inform as much, it's not going to go well.
Thank you. Alexandra, do we have any questions or comments in the Q&A box?
Yeah, so it looks like we have 3 questions so far. So again, just a friendly reminder to our attendees, please continue to submit your questions or comments. So our first question comes from Jared. Are there any examples of ways the increased productivity was measured? We have had staff say they felt more productive, but we don't have a great way to measure that internally.
So we have a couple, like I mentioned, there were a couple of tasks that we've been wanting to work on that we just haven't kind of pushed over the finish line. I talked about a program as small as a Century Home program that we talked about for a year and a half. We finally had a staff member that was at home that wrote up an application process. What's going to be the process of applying for that? And we're going to be rolling that out this fall. I think if we reduced our staffing last year, we wouldn't have had anybody to really have working on that. The overhaul of our HR manual, it is over 100 and some pages. It is very, very, I'll be honest, boring reading for someone to go over there and really look at it and look at the legalities of what needs to get changed and updated. That needs to happen uninterrupted. And when you have staff that are able to work on that remotely at home, we're going to be finishing that. And then I would like to say that we have a major redevelopment area in town that we're close to kind of finalizing, that Jen has been working on for, I think, as long as she's been in Bedford, almost 4 years. And although there's many other reasons why I think we're crossing the finish line, this deal involved county officials, Bedford officials, developers. There were a lot of moving parts. To be able to have these meetings via Zoom, and all of that being able to be accomplished remotely, I really think it saved us a tremendous amount of time. And we're going to be wrapping that project up as well in the coming months.
Great, thank you. So Andrea asked a two-part question. She says, Jennifer, you mentioned software reduced the number of staff and savings were realized. Was there any pushback due to staff reduction or to the use of technology? Also, how has this impacted the transition between those retiring and new hires?
Thank you, Councilwoman. That's a good question. So we've really kind of used your last question there to create those opportunities. Much like here in Bedford, we had someone who made the choice partway through COVID to retire. And it was, let's try not to fill it. Let's see how it works. And that's what's happening in other communities. I know Parma is another one of the original 6 that we worked with. They've had the entire building department, with the exception of its leader, retire in the last year. And they're really looking differently at how those positions are going to be filled. So we're trying real hard not to displace anybody, but I think just critique more when that opportunity presents itself. How do we fill it, or do we even need to fill it?
Excellent. So we have 2 questions from Trent. Did you make inroads of breaking out of that 8 to 5 mindset, or do you still have staff stick to those hours? So that's the first question.
So we do have staff that have broken out of that. We have, especially like within our Parks and Recreation department, they are really focused on with what they do. They're more of a flex schedule. Depending on what tasks or what's going on weekends, they're at home, they're working from home. And we also have some staff at City Hall that spend, like I mentioned, my administrative assistant, 3 days she works at home, and then she's in the office 2 days, except if I'm on vacation or if I take more than a few days off in a row, she's here. But we have other staff here as well. I will say one thing. I think the next 12 months will really dictate how the staff take to this. We had some that during the pandemic, they were provided all the IT, they were at home. They were at home for, a few weeks, and then they were back, and they came back, we were starting to slowly open up, and I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, I got 3 kids at home. My husband's at home. I'm coming back to work I'm more productive here than I'm at home. So it'll be interesting to see now with children back in school, most spouses, who may have been remote, if they returned to the office. I think this year, the next 12 months will give us a better gauge of who's really transitioning with that and who would rather be in the office.
Thank you. So our final question and Trent's second question is, did you receive any feedback from staff that now that their workplace is their home, they had difficulty disengaging from work?
I have not had any feedback in regards to that. There was some interesting data that Jen obtained in one of the surveys where there were a couple of people that replied, they had difficulty with that, the lack of social interaction, the lack of being around staff, and that was a challenge for them. So although we haven't heard some of those challenges here, we did get some of that come back with, like I said, one of the questions was, what were your difficulties? And that was mentioned more than once.
But I will say, and this was where you really learned who your good leaders were. Mike was exceptional to make sure that he reached out to all of his senior staff. At least every couple of days, he'd be calling me if we were talking otherwise, making sure, I was okay, things were going okay. You shared a couple of laughs, so you still have, your boss employee bond, but that's where your good leaders, I think, really step in and check not only on your employee, but also on the person.
Yeah, I totally agree. So Charlene says, great presentation. Please send to CSU and throughout Ohio. And those are all of our questions and comments for today. So I will pass it back over to Rob. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, great job. This is one of my passion projects too. I personally think this is the way we should be moving in the future. And I can talk about this all day. But we better move on. I will say the one thing I want to say though is our programs obviously are online, and we were operating, Alexandra and I, both from home for most of the time, and they called us back to work. Alexandra was back in the office a couple of days ago and had Zoom calls all day long and kept on getting blocked and kept on getting pushed offline because we realized that there's so many people at CSU that are trying to get bandwidth that the actual capacity would not allow it. So I've actually asked for permission to work back remotely because the fact that to facilitate our programs, we need to be off of campus to actually do it the right way. So I think this is going to be an ongoing conversation. I appreciate you both being trailblazers and pushing this initiative. If there's any way that this platform can help you to continue that, I would welcome it, and I'm right there with you. So congratulations and best of luck as you move forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
So we're going to jump into the next project real quick here to keep the party started so that we can be on schedule for the rest of the day. I'd like to bring in my CSU family for the next project. This is a three amigos, I guess you can call them. Charlene Jones from CSU, Tony Kalawali from CSU affiliate, and Ramona Lowry from the city of Cleveland. And they have a really neat program that Charlene runs at CSU called the Link program, and their topic is called the Link program expansion at CSU. This is a fantastic, another passion project of mine as well, and I'm just excited to see what they put together. So if they are ready to rock and roll, I would love to pass the mic over to our Link partners.
Good morning, all. My name is Charlene Jones. I'm a double alum of Cleveland State University and the Link Program Coordinator. This is my second time managing this amazing program. We're moving in the right direction, and it's time to significantly expand the number of students participating in the program and our number of partnerships to provide additional opportunities for our Link scholars. Our Link logo, linking minority students to careers with the bridge, is the foundation, and each beam is a step to success for our scholars. Next, Ramona Lowry will introduce herself.
Good morning. I am Ramona Lowry, the Commissioner for the City of Cleveland Sewer Department Water Pollution Control, and a Link alum from the second class. I'm still involved as a Link mentor because I know the value of Link and the value of having a mentor. As a first-generation college student for my family, I am pretty confident that I may not have graduated from CSU if I were not a part of the LINK program. When I participated in LINK, there was a summer component that allowed me to take classes on campus to prepare me for engineering. This, of course, increased my confidence when school started, as I was already familiar with the rigor of coursework as well as the campus. Additionally, as a member of LINK, I had the opportunity over the summer to shadow a female engineer that I'm still in contact with today. Without LINK support early on and throughout my collegiate career, I would not have had any idea of how to navigate a collegiate environment. Thus, I'm still here today to assist other LINK students with those valuable connections and to teach them how to navigate a collegiate environment. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Tony.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Tony Clowley. I'm a recent LINK alum, as well as a graduate of Cleveland State. I earned a bachelor's in public safety management and I triple minored. I was also part of the Honors College, and I'm starting at Cleveland Marshall College of Law this fall. I actually started yesterday, earlier this week. I'm really grateful for the LINK program and all that I've learned as a result of my time there. So when I was invited to work on this project, I jumped at the chance to help this program that's done so much for me on my journey. And now I'm going to pass the baton back to Ms. Jones, who's going to introduce our video. Thank you so much, Tony. Please watch the video to hear from current LINK scholars and 2 outstanding LINK alum from the very first and second class, how the LINK program has made such an important impact in their lives and their future. After the video, you will hear from Ms. Ramona Lowry, LINK alum, LINK mentor, and commissioner of the City of Cleveland regarding where the LINK program is now.
I think LINK just does so much in so many arenas, and it's just such a blessing, you know, as well as providing scholarships that, you know, enable me to not have to worry about school while I'm in school. I also have to work as well, so not having to worry about every little, you know, penny and scraping to just get by is giving me more time for my studies and doing all I can to get a good GPA, get good internship experience, you know, connect with students in my major and do all I can. So I think LINK had made me excel in ways I just didn't expect.
The LINK program initially, right away, and to this day, meant that I was being seen. Simple as that. I was seen as a young entrepreneur, a young student, a young Black African American woman, a young dreamer, and just someone that could have endless opportunities, and this was a group of people that were going to dedicate their time, their funds, their resources just to me.
The LINK program to me has come to mean a lot of things. It's come to mean growth primarily because I've experienced a lot of growth in the LINK program. I've definitely come out of my shell a lot more. I'm more comfortable speaking in front of people, speaking with people who are in authority. It's not intimidating anymore. I've gotten a lot of boldness to speak my mind, obviously respectfully, but in a professional and poised manner where I can speak my mind and actually get the point across in a way that people will listen.
I have better direction of what I want to do after undergrad. Before, I was having a hard time with that. I didn't really have any kind of resources available to me to know exactly what I want to do, but because of the LINK program, I do now.
I'm a current senior at Cleveland State University, majoring in public safety management and organizational leadership. I'm set to graduate this May, and after that, I'll be attending the CM Law School. With that, I hopefully want to one day become a police chief or public safety director. Without the LINK program, I don't think I would have gotten this far and accepted into law school.
One of the most impactful things about the LINK program is our ability to work with students from where they are and to take them to heights with which they had no idea they could accomplish. And you have seen that when you look at Ron Johnson as well as Ramona Lowry, who were in the first and second class of the LINK program, and how they have risen to the heights that they have gotten to because of the LINK program.
I was in the very first LINK class when it was established many, many moons ago. It's been a great program. It was a great introduction for me to college and to Cleveland State, and I've been very appreciative of what the LINK program has taught me over the years. I'm a mentor because I understand firsthand the value of mentoring. My corporate mentors helped me think about where I wanted to go, what my skills were, and quite frankly, one of them actually told me that I had a responsibility to reach back and bring someone along. Cleveland State historically has been a commuter college, and so sometimes it's very difficult for students just to get acclimated to that type of environment. But when you come in as part of a program in your freshman year, it really does create a sense of community.
So I am Ramona Lowry, the Commissioner for the City of Cleveland, Division of Water Pollution Control, graduate of Cleveland State, 1996. It was very important to serve as a mentoring piece for students, anything just to help navigate and to successfully get through school, because if you don't know, it's just eye-opening to come into a collegiate environment. It's nothing like high school. And that's why I still mentor. I've recruited quite a few students for LINK program. I know at least 4 or 5 have graduated, probably more than that. Okay, thank you for watching the video. As you see, the strengths shown on the slide and previous video shared have been instrumental to the success of the LINK program. During the Public Management Academy process, however, we had to step back, perform a SWOT analysis, as you see on the screen here, in order to determine how we could have a larger impact and expand the program so that a greater number of students are successful. In doing this evaluation, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats have been identified, as is shown here, that must be addressed in order to ensure another 30+ years. So I won't read all, but you'll just see that one of our strengths is that the program has been around for over 30 years. There's a strong alumni and mentor component, and our graduation rate is over 70%, which is phenomenal. Weaknesses that we identified during this process is, of course, the too little staff and the lack of operational funding. Opportunities, of course, is emergency discretionary funds, if we could use that to assist our students. And a couple of threats identified is insufficient funding and no succession planning, all of which are beneficial to the success of any program. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Jones that will share some background information and an overview of the LINK program.
Thank you, Ms. Lowry. The LINK program was established over 30 years ago to fulfill the corporate demand for diverse talent in co-ops, internships, and full-time employment opportunities. For students of color, it's also an outstanding opportunity to gain experience within their major and career field, which prepares them for life upon graduation. LINK has helped hundreds of students, and from 1988 to 2002, the graduation rate ranged from 80% to over 90%. Unfortunately, between 2003 and 2010, the rate ranged from 16.7 to 41.2%. Since 2011, we have and continue to graduate more scholars, and our overall graduation rate continues to rise and was at 66%. One amongst many success stories includes at one time having the ability to clear students' debt of over $7,000 owed to Cleveland State University. This allowed the student to complete 3 semesters of co-ops, summer of 2013, spring and summer in 2014 with MVP Plastics. The CEO became an additional mentor for this scholar. The student graduated in May 2018, and in September 2018, he started as a project engineer for MVP Plastics. There are requirements to participate in the LINK program and to receive the benefits. Requirements include GPA, attendance at Mentor-Mentee luncheons, the annual reception, and completion of at least 1 co-op or internship before graduation. Volunteering at the Black Professional Association Gala is strongly encouraged. The benefits are so much more than a $1,000 scholarship each semester for 3 years. The real benefits are the additional academic support provided by the Link coordinator, professional training, and an assigned professional mentor with access to all Link mentors, and the ability to create their professional network while in college. Individualized support includes discussing standard topics such as current classes, midterm grades, and the degree progress, their current working situations, mentor contact and connections, and their resumes and practice interviewing skills with them. However, personalized topics include home life, finances, personal concerns, their careers, and informational interviewing to expand their network. Ms. Ramona Lowry will now talk about the mentoring component.
As I shared earlier, data states that students with a mentor are more likely to graduate, which is one reason that I remain involved as a mentor despite my very hectic schedule. As a mentor, I've had an opportunity, as I shared on the video, to recruit many students to participate in the LINK program. Additionally, as a mentor, I had the opportunity to hire a civil engineering student that I recruited for LINK and mentored throughout the program. At the same time that he was hired, I hired another engineering CSU grad, both civil engineering African-American males, based on the recommendation of another LINK mentor, Dwayne Cochran, executive in residence at CSU and former area human resource manager at Parker Hannifin. In this program, opportunities such as that allow students to see firsthand the value of their mentors, helping them out and leveraging various relationships within our network. These relationships are often used to open doors that might not otherwise be open if they were not a part of the LINK program. Items that students learn as part of the mentoring program, they get to participate in the luncheons, which are very valuable. The luncheons allow students the opportunity to network with professionals, learn more about various opportunities to network with, and they get to network with the panelists, learn about dining etiquette, the impact of their appearance, building their confidence, and crafting their elevator speech. One example I'll share is a few years back, I recruited a student from LINK that was a YOU, which is Youth Opportunities Unlimited student, through Mayor Frank Jackson's summer program. Preparing the student for a successful future, which is what LINK does, the student had an opportunity to speak in front of over 800 people, which I'll say was real practice for his elevator speech that he crafted at LINK, at the annual Black Professional of the Year Gala for BPACF. The same student is currently working at MVP Plastics in their engineering section for the summer, and is in his third internship gained through LINK. He's also shared with me just about his experience at MVP Plastic, the wonderful presentations that he's done, and just good experience gained through the LINK program. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Tony, LINK alum, to discuss co-ops and internships that students get to participate in as part of the LINK program.
Thank you, Ms. Ramona. So one of the biggest components, in addition to the mentoring, is the co-ops and internships that students are required to participate in as part of the LINK program. You have to get at least one, so it's not something where it's like you have to get one every single summer. However, getting at least one is really beneficial so that it prepares you for the workforce. And of course, like is mentioned on the slide, there are a couple differences between co-ops and internships. They're not quite the same thing. However, regardless of whether it is a co-op or an internship, as part of the LINK program, it is preferred that you get a paying opportunity because it better prepares you for the workforce, because you're not going to be volunteering in a workspace your entire career. You're going to be paid for the work that you do. And these often open the door for full-time employment down the line. So in my experience, I had an internship with the city of Cleveland, specifically city council, while I was in the LINK program in my my junior year going into my senior year. And it lasted for an entire summer. And it even got to be extended for the course of an entire year. And the whole reason I was even able to step forward and go into that internship was because of the skills that I gained in the LINK program. So even though that specific internship was not gained through a LINK connection, if I was not part of the LINK program, I wouldn't even have gone for it in the first place. And while I was there, I made so many different connections, a number of which I still communicate with till this day. And it really helped me to get my foot in the door and get some more experience and prepare me for when I want to go into the workforce full time. Now, as mentioned when I introduced myself, I am going to law school this fall. So that's the only reason why I do not have full-time employment right now. Otherwise, I have been presented with multiple opportunities. And just because of my internship experience, those opportunities came my way. It's not something that I had to search for. I would run into people, whether professors or otherwise, and they say, oh, I saw this job. I thought you'd be great for it. You should apply, or things like that. So these opportunities, these internships oftentimes open up so many doors that may not have been open otherwise if it was not for and embarking on this endeavor. And now I will transfer the baton back to Ms. Jones, who's going to talk about graduation and success beyond that. Thank you, Tony. And as you can see, Tony is another one of our success stories. Link's previous overall graduation rate was 66% and continues to rise and is now over 70%. Mentors, networking with professionals, co-ops, and internships, the additional individualized support, and learning about various employers through mentor-mentee luncheons are what makes the difference for Link students of color. Additional success stories include 3 Link scholars interned with Key Bank and now work full-time at Key Bank. We have 1 Link scholar joining First Energy. Actually, she joined on August 2nd, and that will make 3 Link alum at First Energy. 1 Link scholar is joining Goodyear's Finance and Accounting Development Program. 2 Link scholars will be attending law school, one of which is here with me, Ms. Tony, and the other is Glenn. 2 are in pharmacy school. 1 is at Howard University, the other is with University Hospitals. And 1 Link scholar is in the Cleveland Clinic Lerner College of Medical class of 2024. We are so proud. We're also in the process of reestablishing and revising the Link Advisory Board, reestablishing and continuing to market the program throughout Northeast Ohio, revising the goals and focus to work on fundraising, to provide additional scholarship money when Link scholars need emergency financial support, and to provide operational support so Link can progress to the next level. Revising to work on fundraising, which is what Ms. Tony will cover on the next slide, and also Ms. Ramona and Ms. Tony will talk about what to achieve.
As shared on the previous slides, as well as the video, the PMA project has been helpful in getting us to the next step to help us with laying out an action plan. Tony will now share what is needed for us to expand the bridge so that we continue reaching out across Northeast Ohio.
So on the previous slide, Ms. Jones discussed the fundraising piece. And in terms of fundraising, that is more so about increasing alumni support and organizational partnerships, which includes additional mentors, co-ops, and internships, as well as opportunities for full-time employment upon graduation for the scholars. To ensure the sustainability of the Link program, it comes through gaining more operational support, particularly a little more money, as well as staff, as well as succession planning to ensure that Link continues for years to come. So now we ask that you please watch the final portion of the video that we showed previously so you can hear more from my fellow Link scholars and alum.
Without the Link program, I wouldn't have had the skill set or the leadership skill set that it takes to build professional networks.
It's made me go farther than I wanted to go.
The sky is not the limit.
Because of the LINK program, I am a confident, independent young woman who's no longer afraid to speak her mind and step out and achieve her dreams.
always continue to give because students like me are so much in need of program like this.
Again, thank you for taking the time to watch the video. And just to reiterate, we do need you to join us so that we can continue linking minority students to careers.
As program coordinator, I would like to thank you and our existing partners, as you see the logos on the screen, on behalf of Link Scholars, the opportunity to change their trajectory for their families, their careers, the Northeast Ohio community that they serve. Although the program started in 1988, the need and the demand continue to grow. Again, join us in this journey of guiding these students on the roadmap to success. As demonstrated in the video and presentation, we have figured it out. Your partnership is the missing link to expanding the program so that we can serve more students. Your comments and questions are welcome at this time.
Great job. Well, I'm just so happy to be part of CSU, and I think that you summarized it as the reason why I'm a Viking and the reason why I love working at the university. Our tagline is engaged learning, and you, Charlene, and Tony and Ramona, just exemplify what that means. It's not a slogan. It's not a billboard. It's the lives. It's the changing the community, and it's putting our community and individuals and the families in a much better place and opening up doors and creating that bridge to success. So I just want to say congratulations on all the work that you've done thus far. And obviously there is need and opportunity to expand that. So I'm really just blown away by what you put together and what you're do every single day for our students. Charlene, thank you so much on behalf of the university. Just a fantastic job. Before we jump into the questions, I do have a few that I want to run by you. So hope I don't blabber on too long. So let me get right to it. I thought I heard something about a summer component. Is there such a thing as a summer component? And for the Link students and a shadowing experience, could you just expand on that a little bit more?
Yes, there was a component from 2011 through 2014, and that was when I was first managing the program. And we brought in actually freshmen, and that was great because we were able to set them on the path to success. Unfortunately, there was a time frame where I didn't manage the program, and unfortunately that got let go. I would love to have that added back because there are students that don't even make it to their second year, which means they don't have the opportunity to join the Link program. And also, since it was over the summer, the shadowing component was really easy. Through the partners that you saw on the previous slide, we were able to give opportunities of anywhere from 2 days to a week for students to spend time in their careers before they even started to see if, yes, this is the direction I want to go in, or gee, no, okay, not quite what I thought it was. Let me now think about changing my major. So those were great opportunities. We'd love to have those back.
Well, that's important. I do know from the retention rates that I've heard at the university that's that freshman year going into the sophomore year. That's a big part that we're looking at to make sure that we can retain those folks and make sure they stay on track. So I think that would be a valuable added benefit to your programs if you can get that back and running. So I guess my next question real quick is, we want to add more programs. We want to add more opportunities. We need to provide more services. Can you just touch on how many people are involved in this from a staff perspective? Is it just you, Charlene, or do you have anybody else, other employees, students, GAs? I don't know, anybody else that works with you on this?
Unfortunately, now it is just me. In the past, when I first joined, we had additional coordinators that were a part of the program, as well as an administrative direct support for the program. So I'll say through the various transitions that took place, I'm the only staff member at this time. It does make it a bit stressful, I guess, or challenging, because I'm dealing with anywhere from 31 to up to, I've done 39 students, and that's 3 one-on-one meetings with all those students, as well as the programming for the program when we have the lunches, as well as we have Link Student Association programming that takes place that I oversee. as well as when we're having the luncheons, you have to do the coordination of the events. And then we have at least 30 mentors that periodically I'm in touch with because we have to keep them engaged. But as issues may come up for students, we have an opportunity to talk about those, to resolve those as well. So, and the other piece is fundraising. In my spare time, I get to do fundraising to get more dollars for our program, whether it's scholarship at this point, but now we're going to actually move towards including operational funds, because an additional person would help so much more. We could potentially do, I'll say eventually twice the number of students we do now, which would be anywhere from, I'll say 60 or more, which would be phenomenal. Because although we do provide an outstanding service, as you can see from Tony and others, it does great work. If we're only doing about 30 some at a time, that's not even close to the number of students of color at Cleveland State University.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally get it. Alexandra and I are trying to build the plane while it's flying. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about there as well. So these programs that have the biggest impact sometimes don't have the staffing that they require or they need to really take it to the next level. So I hope that you can achieve some of those goals. So you not only can offer the scholarships, but then have some warriors in the trenches with you to get this going and help you advance and grow. So great job. Alexandra, I'm going to pass over to you. Any questions or comments in the Q&A box?
Yeah, so first of all, fantastic job and what a fantastic program. We do have one question from Scott. So he says, maybe you have no way of knowing, but do you have any sense of what portion of the student of color population you serve at CSU?
Alexandra, is the question the percentage of students of color or what portion of the students of color base I serve?
I guess how many are at CSU?
I believe the percentage that you serve, you reach at CSU.
Oh my gosh, that honestly, that would be such a small drop in the bucket in comparison to the number of students of color at CSU, I believe, is just under 10%. And so of that, and I think we're about 16, let's say we have 16,000 students. If we were 10%, that would be 1,600. And I'm only serving about 35. So I'm not even close to a good sized number to feel like I'm making a huge impact. We were making an impact, which is important, but we would really like to see that impact be much larger.
Excellent. So those are all the questions that we received. And just in the interest of time, if Rob's okay, I think we can move on.
Yeah, absolutely. And just again, Tony, Ramona, and Charlene, wonderful project. And we're here to support you. And I want to be part of that journey to help you build that plane while it's flying in the air. So keep it up and keep going and keep changing lives, because we need more Tonys and Ramonas in the world that are superstars. So without further ado, talking about one of the superstars, Tony actually has her own individual project that she would like to present, which I think is just amazing. I think this kind of hits a passion project for her. We talk about passion projects here a lot, and this one definitely is something that Tony brought to our attention that she's been working on for a long time. And it's also, I think, part of her reason why she's going back to law school and probably pursuits after that. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Tony back up to the podium here, the virtual podium, and her topic is called Justice Uncovered, Podcasting Through the Lens of Justice. So Tony, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Rob. Sorry, everybody, you can't get rid of me that easily. Since I've already kind of introduced myself, I won't go through the whole spiel of, this is where I'm from and all of that. However, as Mr. Rob has said, this is definitely a passion project of mine. Criminal justice is something that I've been involved in and interested in for a long time. And so when I sat down to work on this project, it was something very near and dear to my heart. So I'm not going to put any half effort into this. So in the beginning, before we get started, I'm going to share with you some statistics that may shock you. However, each and every one of them is very true. So these are the first set. In the United States right now, the number is 2.3 million people in terms of how many people are currently sitting in a cell, whether that is in jail or in prison. And right now the number is a little bit smaller because of COVID. So it's dropped down to about 1.8 million. However, it's starting to creep back up now that things are starting to open back up again. The numbers are starting to go back up to that 2.3 million. And that's a huge increase, astronomical increase from what it was just 50 years ago. And that puts the United States at having the highest incarceration rate as well as number of people incarcerated. So not only do we have 2.3 million people in a cell, we also have the highest incarceration rate in the entire world, not just in the developed world, but in the entire world, period. And for the United States, that's about 698 people per 100,000 people. Now, that doesn't sound like a very large rate. And given the population of the United States, that does not sound like a huge portion of the population. However, when you compound it over time, over the course of the past 50 years, right now in the United States, 77 million people have a criminal record. That's almost 80 million people. And that's actually almost a third of the United States population. The United States population is roughly 365 million people, roughly. That's like a third or fourth of the entire population that has a record. And then people who have family members who have been incarcerated, immediate family members. So not talking about second cousins, twice removed from their father's side. This is talking about immediate family members, parents, cousins, whatever the case may be. Not including children, 113 million adults. So not children who have parents who are incarcerated, but 113 million adults have immediate family members who have been incarcerated. So the reach of the incarceration rate of the number of people who are in prison expands far beyond just the 2.3 million people sitting in a cell right now. And in Ohio, because we are in Ohio, we're in Cleveland. In Ohio, the number seems a little smaller, about 79,000 people are inside of the prison system. However, the incarceration rate in the state of Ohio is just under that of the United States. And this is with COVID taken into account. The incarceration rate for the state of Ohio is 679 people per 100,000. That's less than 20 people less than the actual rate of the United States at large. And that's astronomical. Of course, in the correction system, there's not just people sitting in prison and cells. There's also people who are out in the community, but they're on certain supervisions that they have to fulfill particular requirements. So in terms of probation and parole, there are about 4.4 million people under those two systems. In total, including people in community supervision, as well as people who are sitting in a cell, that's roughly about 6.7 million people in the corrections system at large in the United States of America. And for the probationary aspects, it seems like it's better. However, people are still under correctional control, and the requirements that they're allowed to fill, it's almost presented as just an outdoor prison. All of these people are in prison. All of these people are under correctional control. However, most of them are going to return to society. People are not in there forever. They are bound to return to society unless they have a life sentence or on death row. And in the entire United States, that's about 95% of the entire offender population. In Ohio, roughly 22% of the people who are returning to society come to Cuyahoga County. And of those people returning to Cuyahoga County, 79% return to Cleveland. So because of these statistics right here, that shows just how important it is for us to be aware of this information because of how much it affects us, particularly in this city, but of course, because we all live in the United States, that's another reason too. So why exactly are all these people in prison? Why exactly are all these people on correctional control what happened, what goes on while they're there, what are they supposed to do, what are they supposed to fulfill, what kind of requirements is supposed to be happening. These kind of questions are some things that people don't really know. So if you're not actually experiencing it yourself, you're not really going to know what goes on because you're not there. And these very questions are what I aim to answer and find out and discover the answers to with this project. It's a podcast. I started a podcast that is dedicated to kind of answering those questions and figuring out what really goes on in the criminal justice system by sharing the stories of those who have been and are still affected by it. So what I do is I typically interview people who have been previously incarcerated. And there's actually going to be an interview of somebody who's currently incarcerated. He's actually on death row in the state of Ohio. I share the stories of these people who have been affected by it, let them know, kind of, get their story out there so that people can understand what they experience, what they go through, what their story is, and just to kind of buttress the humanity of these individuals, because they may have done absolutely terrible things, but that's not all that they are. That's not the sum of who they are. There is more to them. And what they go through is still important to us, especially since most of them are going to be coming back into society. So why this subject? Like I said, this is an incredible passion project of mine. This is something that has been near and dear to my heart for several years. I believe this is what I am called to do. I feel like I am called to work with people who don't even have an opportunity to enter the room, to be a voice for the people who are not heard, and not only to be a voice for them, but to magnify their voices so that people can hear them. Because it's one thing if you're seeing me talk about it, you know me for the most part, most people know me. You know where I'm from, you believe the words that are coming out of my mouth because of certain things. You think I'm credible, you think I'm an upstanding citizen. However, that same respect or acknowledgement should be given to somebody who has experienced it. They should not be looked at differently just because of the fact that they have a record. Because nobody has a sign on their head saying, oh, I have a criminal record, I was accused of this, nobody has that on their head. So until they tell you, you don't even know. And so the biggest qualm I have is that people in those situations are not heard, and then they are viewed differently just because of an experience that they had in the past. They cannot control the fact that they have a record now. They were incarcerated, now they are out. They cannot control the fact that they have a record, that it's there. And so my purpose is to magnify their voices, get their stories heard, so that change can happen, so that things can take place, so that people can be aware, so that things can become better. Because if you don't know, you're not going to be able to put anything in place to improve anything. And as I mentioned here, disclaimer, I don't have a record. I don't have anybody in my family who has a record, but I shouldn't have to in order to care about this subject, because this is something that affects all of us. And what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to share a short audio clip from two individuals that I have interviewed. One person, he was incarcerated for 18 and a half years for a violent crime. He was released and he was able to turn his life around because he was given a chance. Another person, he was incarcerated on and off in total for about 12 years. He has not been near a prison for 30 years. The other person had been released maybe 5 or 6 years ago. This person hadn't been near one for 30 years, and he was not able to get a job. He was not given a chance. So you're going to hear from both of them and kind of get a glimpse at how these people who we're not listening to, how they're impacted by our choices.
I've been a part of several administrations while I was incarcerated. I think the best, and probably the reason I'm home, was the one under Kasich with Gary Moore, who tried to do some things, and Todd Ishii, who was awesome as a regional director. They paved the way for a lot of us offenders that would have probably never gotten a chance. Cleveland State has been great at bringing me along. Every connection I've made has been through this organization, this college. I get to sit with other directors now. I get to sit with, I've sat with heads of state under my mentor, Bill Denahan, and I've learned a lot.
Y'all still wouldn't hire me because of something I did something that happened 30 years ago. When do it stop for us though? You know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, you can't keep punishing a person. Now, he already been punished by the penal system. He already did whatever. And that don't necessarily saying that what he ever went to the penitentiary for is true. They actually did do it. So now, my question being is to all of this here, when do we stop being judged by society? I've been home 30 years, had no problem, no nothing. And yet I still can't get a job at Cleveland Clinic for something else.
I've been a part of several administrations while I was incarcerated.
So
I think the best and probably the reason I'm home was the one under Kasich with Gary Moore, who tried to do some things.
there we go. All right. So as you heard from these two individuals, the very first person, he's now a director of a nonprofit. The other person is retired, but he's unemployed. That shows because he was given a chance. The person who's a director now, he was given a chance. He was able to better his life. The other person was not given a chance. He's still unemployed to this day. It shows the impact that we have on these people's lives. So the choices that we make puts their lives on the line. It affects their livelihood. So this is why this is so passionate. This is such a passion of mine, because this is something that needs to be addressed, because we are all human in this world. We're all subject to the human experience. And we are all affected by it in multiple different ways. So just because you don't have a record, so in my experience, I don't have one, I don't know anybody in my family who has one, does not mean that I'm not impacted. It does not mean that you are not impacted. Because for one, in the area of money, taxes, we pay taxes that fund the prison system. The United States government spends $81 billion, not million, $billion per year on the correction system. And that's not including the courts, that's not including police, that is corrections. So prisons, parole, probation, probationary officers, people like that. That is what that is funded. $81 billion a year is what's being spent on that. So it affects us in terms of money. It affects us in terms of employment. Because people who have a record, when they are released, one of their requirements is that they're supposed to get a job. They're not always able to get a job because employers do background checks. The whole reason why the individual who hadn't been near a prison in 30 years was not able to get a job is because in the state of Ohio, when an employer does a background check, they can check back as far as they want. They can check back until the day you were born and they see, oh, you were incarcerated for this. No thanks. There are only a handful of states in America that have a limit on how far back an employer can look for somebody's background check. In, I believe, California and maybe about 12 other states, the limit is 7 years. They can only look back 7 years. So if you don't have anything in that 7 years, you're good to go. But for a majority of the states in America, they can look back 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. If you have anything within that period, they can say, nah, I don't want to hire you. And the thing is, they may not even know why. They may not know why you were incarcerated. They'll just see that you were incarcerated for X amount of time and they'll say, I'm good. Or if they do see why, if they can still choose not to hire you, even if what you were incarcerated for has absolutely nothing to do with the requirements of the job. And because of that, the 77 million people who have a record in the United States, a good chunk of them are unemployed. And the reduced amount of employment in the United States because of these people who have a record costs us, taxpayers, citizens, people living in the United States of America, costs us between $78 and $87 billion a year. That's a lot of money. That's also a lot of money that's not going into taxes. So our tax burden is higher. And you see the kind of the cycle of there's a lot of money circulating around in this system, and there's things that could be applied to other areas that are not, because of the fact that so many people are unemployed for reasons that they cannot control. And that goes into the economy because of the fact that people are not working. A lot of people are not working, and it's worse because of COVID, because the unemployment rate has gone up in so many areas for people who don't have a record, let alone people who do. And so the economy is struck hard because of the fact that these people who are not working are not paying taxes. And then the tax burden is higher on us. So let's leave all the money aspect alone, because it's not just money that gets affected by that. Public safety is affected. If you have people who are unable to get a job, and also a lot of people who have a record are unable to get public housing. So they're unable to get housing too. They'll end up homeless half the time, more than half the time. So if you have people who are not able to make money, they're living on the street or in somebody's basement or in a homeless shelter or whatever the case may be, they don't have their own roof over their head. That means they have ample time to do whatever, but it also means that they have to find other means of survival. If they cannot get a legal job, they will look for an illegal job, whatever will give them money. So it's more likely, and statistics have shown this, that poverty, especially extreme poverty, is one of the biggest factors of criminal activity. If somebody is poor and can't get a job, they don't have their own place to live, they are going to find a means of survival, which impacts public safety, which actually would make crime go up as opposed to limiting the crime that takes place. So having more people in prisons, having more people in this, it's not even the actual people in the prisons, it's the fact that they're not given a chance once they come out. And yes, we need to hold them accountable for their actions because they may have done something absolutely terrible. Yes, hold them accountable for their actions. However, there's a difference between accountability and judgment. Accountability, as a society, we have a responsibility to hold people accountable for the things that they do, but we have absolutely no right to judge a person based on, one, something they can or cannot control. We cannot judge them for something like that. We cannot judge them for a characteristic such as previous records, because if they have already paid their price, they've already been rehabilitated. And this is, of course, this is given the people who they also are taking their own accountability into account. They are keeping themselves accountable. If we continuously look at them and refuse to give them a chance, no matter how hard they try, eventually they will give up and find other means of surviving. Or they die. And that's on us. And that's not fair. So that perception aspect of it, that also plays into the public safety. Because if we perceive them as, you're a despicable person because you have a record, we literally perpetuate a cycle of diminishing somebody. It's demeaning when you look at somebody and think of them as other, or they're different from me, just because of something like that. They can't control that. Yes, they have a record that was in their past. You don't even know their whole story, and yet you see them as somebody else. And I'm not saying this to try and call anybody out. I'm not saying that we do this stuff intentionally. We don't. It's just based on things that we have seen, whether in the media or in other ways, things that we have experienced maybe in our past, so that we have a predisposition bias, or maybe it's just because we're just not aware. And then when we hear the term, oh, somebody's been incarcerated, oh, they must have done something terrible, they must have been a despicable person. We don't do that consciously. It's just because of what we've been exposed to, what we've been conditioned to believe. That's how it is. And as a result of that, my goals and hopes for this podcast is to, first of all, spread awareness. Because like I said in the beginning, if you don't know, you can't change anything. You can't change anything you don't know anything about. And secondly, it's to inspire action. Because it's one thing to know it. You can have all the tools where you have the knowledge and you understand, okay, this is the problem. I can know all this information and do nothing about it. And the world just keeps on going by. Nothing changes. Nothing happens. Things just keep on being the same old, expecting different results We're expecting things to be different because now we know, but if we don't do anything about what we know, nothing changes. And then finally, it's to initiate lasting change. Because it's one thing to do something that takes care of something on the surface, takes care of an issue that we see, but we don't address the root of it. That problem is just going to come back up in another way. Or it's going to come back in the same way, but worse. Even psychologically speaking, that's what happens. If somebody has had trauma and they don't deal with why they have trauma, they think it's just related to stress, so they get rid of the stressor, but then they don't deal with the actual root of that trauma, the problem will spring back up either in a worse way or it will manifest in something different. So the goal is to initiate lasting change so that when we deal with the root issues of these, figure out the best solution to this ongoing issue, it will not spring up again. There we go. In order for us to create that lasting change, though, there are a couple things that we need to do. And it kind of goes along with what the goals are for this podcast, but there are some things that you can do beyond the podcast, not just listening to it and things like that. You educate yourself. Listening to this podcast is a great way to do that. However, there are other ways. You can read, do research, listen to people's stories, ask questions. There's so much information, so much knowledge and wisdom that you can glean just from asking questions. That's what I do in this podcast. Most of the time, I'm just asking a couple questions and then listening to them share their story. That's the biggest thing that I'm doing. And then once you do that constantly, you educate yourself on the issue so that you can actually know what you would need to do about it. You then can educate others. And it doesn't mean standing in front of people or doing a presentation like I'm doing right now. Not always anyway, that could help. However, just sometimes when you're starting a conversation with your coworker, with your friend, with your parents, whoever, with your kids, just start a conversation and share what you have learned, hear what other people believe about it. And then if they may have a misguided perspective, or if maybe they just don't know and they ask you questions, you can share what you know. And that builds more, that could cause them to go educate themselves. And that spreads awareness in a way where people actually have a better understanding of what's really going on. And you're helping to facilitate that. Then you speak up. Because it's one thing to talk to other people. That's, yes, you're speaking up because you're starting some conversations, you're spreading the word and things like that. However, speaking up is not just about your fellow man in terms of people who are working with you and things. It's also in arenas where decisions happen. So going to town halls, going to city council meetings, talking with your leaders, talking with the members of your community that maybe have some more influence. Because yes, it starts with us. It's a kind of a bottom up, but it's also top down. It has to go both ways. It cannot just be bottom up. It has to be top down as well. Because if it's bottom up, then the top makes a decision and that affects us, everybody from the top down. So you communicate with your leaders and they may be making decisions just because of the fact that this is the information that they have on their plate. Anybody who has worked in the city, anybody who works with city council members or governors or mayors or whoever the case may be, when you work in an administration, there are so many responsibilities that they have on their plate. And the decisions that they're making is based on what they hear, what they have, what they know, what they're receiving in terms of research from their assistants or whoever. So if they don't have all of the information, the decisions that they make, the laws that they create, the ordinances will be only covering some parts of an issue rather than all of it. And that's not on them. They're not doing it deliberately. It's just based on what they're hearing. So if you make sure that they hear every side of an issue, they can make a more informed decision, create more informed laws and ordinances that can then affect the root of an issue and take care of it. And then please vote. I don't think I have to explain the value of voting. However, it is crucial. If there is an issue on the table that has to do with criminal justice, that has to do with the incarceration system, has to do with getting people back on their feet, the transition process, whatever the case may be, vote on it. Read up on the issues and vote on it, because every vote that does not happen, every vote that is not applied towards an issue or towards an election period, regardless, it's just only a small handful of people are then affected. because the people who do vote, or not affected, only a small handful of people have influence on a decision. And then we complain about it when we don't like it. Well, you didn't vote. And that applies in every single arena, but especially in areas of this, because you may not be affected right now in terms of somebody personally close to you, but again, it affects your taxes, it affects employment, and then your mindset. Because of the fact that you are forever seeing these people as other. This is something that if we really work actively to read up on these issues and address these issues from the root, things can really change. And also voting helps with making lasting change. At the end of the day, though, you have to be that change. You have to be the change that you want to see. It's one thing to talk about it. Every single one of these previous steps or actions is talking about it, which is good and helps. However, you have to actually do something about it, because actions speak louder than words. So it's one thing to vote. That's a great way to be the change, but it's only one way. It's just making your voice heard. There are other ways that you can find, and I'm not going to tell you the specific ways because that can be different for everybody. You know, some ways that may be based on your workplace. So if you work in the system, kind of figuring out ways in which to work in your organization that helps with the transition. So you'll give more people a chance that they have a record or things like that. There are different ways that you can find. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is a way that you can be the change, because that's different for everybody. Again, like I said, listening to the podcast is one way that you can build your awareness, because you're hearing the stories of the people who are affected directly. You're hearing stories. And once you hear something, that will forever change how you see something. So I encourage you to please listen to the stories, listen to the statistics, stand for true justice, and make lasting change. Let's move from the realm of judging people for something they cannot control to giving them a chance. And yes, it is a risk, but there's no real reward without a real risk. So if Mrs. Alexandra can please put the link to the podcast in the chat, I would greatly appreciate it. There's also a Facebook page for the podcast where we're just about to conclude season 1 of it. And each episode is kind of in sound bites. So each episode is about 20 minutes long to make it easier for you to listen to on your commute or things like that. I don't want to have a whole hour long stretch for you, but I do it in bite sizes so that you can hear the stories. As you can hear the stories, you can kind of think on it a little bit before hearing the next part of it. I want to thank you all. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this presentation, for hearing the stories, for hearing what I've shared with you. And I appreciate your time. And I will take any questions that you may have now.
Tony, congratulations. And I just want to say that I'm so proud that you were part of our cohort and so added so much value and insight throughout the entire process all year. And that you decided and were willing to take on a second project to be part of this cohort. I'm just thrilled. And as you know, I was part of that conversation with Paul Fitzpatrick, and we're here to serve others, and we're here to help those that come in our door. And I'm just glad to be part of that solution, and anything that we can do to advocate for this particular project or things you're working on, count us in. We're there with you. We stand with you as you give voice to these folks that don't have this opportunity. So keep on working hard, and let us know how we can help you as we move forward. So congratulations. This is great.
Thank you.
I think, Alexander, we have a couple questions or some feedback there.
Yeah, we do have some feedback and then one question so far. So Scott said pretty early on, as you were starting your presentation, as you were giving some facts, he also chimed in and said, not only does the US have the highest per capita incarceration rate in the world, take a look at the other countries in the top 10 with us. They are countries we as a nation would never want to be grouped with.
Yeah, that was that was one of the things I noticed when I was doing my research. I'm like, huh, it's not exactly Western countries, as in like European countries that are right underneath us. So I, even in my research, I was blown away by that.
Yeah, that's definitely some food for thought. So Scott also asks, Tony, I know absolutely nothing about podcasts and podcasting. How frequently do you do this? Can you measure how many people listen, or is it a matter of how many people download it?
So I release episodes every other week. I can see how many people listen. It's more about downloads. That's the one that's more active. In terms of how many people listen, that's variable depending on the different platforms that they're listening on, whether it be Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever other avenue that they choose to listen to. However, I can see the number of downloads collectively as well as per episode. So it gets, sometimes it gets in a little bit the technical aspect because I have to go into each episode to see how many people have listened to it. However, I choose for the most part to look at the aggregate downloads for that. And they're not live. So I don't do it live. I basically, because like I said, each episode is about 20 minutes. So I don't do this live. I listen to a conversation with somebody, I record the whole conversation, and then I do some editing to give it to everybody in kind of bite-sized pieces.
Thank you. So we just have one comment from Debbie. She just says, great job, Tony. And yes, I agree, great job. So I will pause for just a moment. If you have any questions or additional comments, please send those at this time.
I'll also kind of go back to the slide that has the link up in case anybody wanted to see it.
Yeah, so I did chat the link to the link tree and then also to Facebook as well. So you should be able to access that in the chat. And if you need those links too, I mean, we can also send those out. All right, so no more questions, no more comments, and I will pass it back to Rob. Thank you.
Well, welcome back. We had a great start to this morning so far, and we're now going to take a journey back to our friends over in South Euclid. And we're here today with Anne Marie Donegan and Daniel Subwick. Anne Marie is the Health Services Administrator for WellPath, and Daniel works over at the City of South Euclid. And they're going to be working on a presentation here about their redesign for the website. And the title of their project is called A Fresh New Look at South Euclid. Take it away.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Rob, can you see and hear us okay? All right.
Okay, great.
So as Rob said, my name's Daniel Subwick. I'm the Community Development Coordinator for the City of South Euclid.
Anne Marie Donegan. Good morning, everyone. I am the Health Services Administrator for the Juvenile Detention Center employed by WellPath. So thank you for joining us.
Our project is called A Fresh New Look at South Euclid. So this takes in a lot of different aspects of how the City of South Euclid reaches its residents, business community, and visitors. So our project presentation is going to cover a lot of information, and we'll try to fit it in within our time frame. But we'll go over our first 5 months, connecting the team, assessing the situation, building for all, a case study, and preparing for launch. So this will make a little bit more sense as we run through the presentation, but we wanted to at least first address our first 5 months, because I was working with Ann on a separate project with a separate organization. And we tried earnestly to make a project work, but at the end of the day, our scope of influence did not meet the needs of the organization or have the intended impact.
So why was this included then in our presentation? Well, I think, we felt it was necessary. When you're putting a project together, you put all of the pieces. You make sure that there's a need. You make sure that there's buy-in, and all of the stakeholders are in agreement. We did all of those things. But I think what we learned and what we wanted to share with the group is that, leadership is about being able to recognize when things are not going to move forward despite of your best efforts, and how it's okay to pivot. It's the glass is actually half full. Pivot, stick together as a team, and see what other projects that you can contribute to. And that is exactly what we did and what we wanted to point out.
And when it was apparent that this project wasn't going to move forward, as Ann said, we were able to pivot and start working on a project that's I've been working on for quite some time. But it really starts with connecting the team here at South Euclid. So my colleague Mike Love presented yesterday. He gave a nice overview of the city of South Euclid, but we're on the east side, entering suburb, mayor, council, government, 22,000 residents, $50 million budget. The city of South Euclid employing over 300 employees. We have about 17 administrative departments and 22 administrative employees that I worked with on a daily basis for this project. When I first joined the city of South Euclid back in 2011, our internal communication skills were many. Some people were using Outlook to do their emails, calendars. Some people were using Google, and there was an archaic software program called Schedule View that I'm very glad nobody is using. So I was sort of the lead on figuring out how to improve those communication tools. We've eventually adopted Google Workspace, which is able to give us all the apps that we need to become a productive administrative staff. Externally, the city's communication tools center around social media, print materials, and the website, which is what we'll be talking about most today, but I did want to cover the other external communication skills. So our Facebook page has a wide reach. It was created in 2009 with over 4,000 followers. We're very active on Facebook. We found it has the most flexibility, reaching the wider audience. Twitter has also a large reach, but not as active, really just replicating information from the Facebook page. We've branched out into Instagram, and we are growing that, having just started it in 2018. We also have a quarterly magazine called the South Euclid Magazine, which has information for all residents, visitors, and businesses.
And I wanted to mention that, what was amazing for a municipality to have was actually the data to support, what are we reaching and how are we reaching? So in any branding effort, whether it is a website, whether it is a logo, websites are branding. And, I think one of the things that is often missed with municipalities is that really go back to data, be a data-driven organization, understand where your message is getting to, and then that way you'll be able to kind of oversee what your goal is and understand, who's looking at what.
And we have about 9,000 addresses for the South Euclid magazine and about 1,000 subscribers to the e-newsletter. So this is a screenshot, so I won't be running through the website during this presentation like an actual live view. I've taken screenshots, so that's what you'll see on these upcoming slides. But this is the South Euclid website as it exists today. So I wanted to provide some numbers starting from December 2019 to November 2020. For the city of South Euclid's website, there's about 66,000 users. So that's unique people. And then of that set, 91,000 sessions. So that's how many times they've actually came back to the website. And overall 185 million page views. Of those, that's about 2 pages per session. But the duration is only about 1.5 minutes at best. So people are accessing the City of South Euclid's website, getting the information that they need, and leaving. I wanted to change that as I built out the new website so that it's more of a destination for people coming in. They don't necessarily just need to stay for what they need and came for. They can start exploring things more easily. And we're seeing that traffic is coming in different ways. In 2019, as opposed to 2020, we saw the use of desktop decrease and mobile devices increase. And I think that's just commonplace. People are using their cell phones for pretty much everything. Sometimes people don't even own a laptop or a desktop. So they're accessing it primarily on portable devices. So as I said, I'm building a new website for the city. It's a WordPress platform. I have experience building websites for different organizations. But for the city, I wanted to make sure that we were addressing website accessibility, simple navigation, a responsive design, connecting resources, and reducing staff's time.
So what I wanted to add here is that I think having all of the data available to start to create an analysis is one pocket. Then the next pocket is, all of these different social media sites that have exploded, and really how that, to maintain those is expensive. Those sites should be consistent. Again, branding, it's, developing that design or that message and repeating. So we felt it was really necessary to understand this data, where it was coming from, how it was coming from, and then it translates into kind of a seamless approach. So no matter where those other links are coming from. And an example is the Humane Society, not run here by the city, but it is important that South Euclid keep in mind of, keeping those people connected for longer than a minute, but then providing them the data or the information that they need, from a kind of a global perspective. And then also really, linking that into reducing the staff time. So you don't need an administrator for Facebook in and out. You don't need an administrator for Instagram, kind of bringing them all together on this very fresh, easy to read and easy to follow website.
Exactly. So starting off with website accessibility, there are guidelines for building a website that is accessible to all. It's called Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, and it's quasi-legal. It's the right thing to do when you're building a website, to incorporate, be inclusive, people who have total blindness, low vision, color blindness, who have red-green deficiencies, so that way the website can meet their needs.
The one thing that I want to add, and that is a plug for South Euclid, as well as folks like Daniel and Michael who work here, the progressiveness of taking a look at this website, ADA compliant, which would be for everyone, is extremely innovative. I don't think anyone's talking about it, but it's certainly something that should be replicated, on a city by city basis.
And it's getting more and more attention. Actually, one of the most recent cases about website accessibility was Domino's Pizza was sued because their website did not allow a person who was totally blind to be able to place an order. And that actually reached the Supreme Court and it was kicked back down, which was a huge victory for disability advocates. So they, website accessibility takes in vision, hearing, cognition, so that way people are able to visually access a website through graphics, color, layout. They're able to use their keyboard to move through the website, but it's also categorized logically for people, and it's robust, not using outdated technology and software. I wanted to show again what the existing website looks like, and then what I've been working on. And this is the view from a desktop. And you can see it has a simplified navigation with a reduction in the number of tabs there at the top.
Again, fresher, cleaner. When you look at, the past website and the current.
So the simple navigation, really, you can see it. This is moving into a tablet screenshot. On the current website, things start to compress and become harder to find and become less in line with the desktop. This is what it looks like on the new website from a tablet view. The navigation stays the same. You do that by simplifying the navigation, how many tabs you have there at the top. And a responsive design means that no matter what device you're on, you're going to have the same experience. So this is what the current website looks like on a mobile device from my phone. And those tabs, the information has completely transformed. A slider that was usually towards the bottom is now towards the top. For the new website, the navigation will hang out in what's called the hamburger icon here. So that way the image, the graphics remains the same from desktop down to phone, and the navigation can be easily found again. Connecting resources goes back to my work implementing Google Workspace into our daily work lives. An example of this on the new website is if you wanted to learn more about government activity, you'd click on the government tab and it would take you to those administrative departments that I've mentioned before.
So again, cleaner and easy to navigate, and visually a much more complete picture of the different areas that you can click on.
And a dark theme is carried throughout the website to improve contrast for visitors with visibility issues. So if a visitor wanted to see what was going on with the Architectural Review Board, they could click on that icon.
And we know that they have an amazing new planning and policy and procedure manual. Thank you to Michael.
Thanks, Mike. On that page, I have a widget built out where people could join a meeting if it's occurring via Zoom. They could also click on a tab to view agendas and meetings. That link goes directly to the internal Google Drive that we work on a daily basis. And so city staff are able to upload information directly to Google Drive. And if somebody wanted to see what was at the next ARB meeting, all that information, as soon as it's presented or applied for to the city, gets immediately uploaded to the drive and therefore accessible to all visitors.
And I think what is underestimated or maybe undervalued is really the need for that information to be available to the public kind of on a very transparent, immediate basis. One of the challenges as a former mayor that I always had was, getting the website uploaded with most current information, most up to date. And so I think Google Drive has offered that availability, and it presents to the public, again, a branding kind of thing that South Euclid is got a, kind of a fresh, easy to manage, all-inclusive website, which was the goal.
Yeah, and Google's great at being accessible too. So we really don't have to duplicate efforts. We don't have to update our website. We just provide a link to existing resources that are updating on their own. And actually, several staff members have access to different folders. So everybody's working together to keep this information up to date. Reducing staff time. I really wanted to build a robust search page for the website because we receive a lot of phone calls. We receive inquiries on social media, people physically coming up to City Hall. And a lot of it is reoccurring. They want to know some of the same information. When's their trash day? Point of sale in the building department. All these things we're trying to make now easily accessible on our website. So that way when somebody searches, I have a list. I asked the website administrator to give me all of the searches within the past 90 days and sort of picked out reoccurring themes.
And again, I think that's data-driven. We underestimate or don't use that language enough in municipal governance. And again, data-driven, what are they asking and how do we provide them what they need?
Some of the questions that I saw, like, are mayors happy and can you put gas in garbage bags? We might not be able to address those in the website, but they're definitely noteworthy. So on the resident side, if they didn't want to get involved with any government aspects and they wanted to stick with what was important to the community, this is what the page looks like. It carries the same theme where you have the left sidebar with all of your different departments or organizations. To the right is a widget that Jennifer Kuzma helped us develop with Cuyahoga County's IT department. It's a residential information lookup web application that they built out for certain first suburb communities. It's a fantastic resource.
Yeah, and I think that this is an opportunity to really utilize and promote other organizations who are working on your behalf, like Jennifer's, the First Suburbs Consortium, in an effort to, not only bring recognition that this is value added, but also to provide South Euclid with much needed information. And, your message or what you're delivering is twofold. That, there is this work that the city's doing on a much higher level. There is another organization, and how do we show, the value added services that the consortium brings.
And by reducing our staff time, a lot of residents will call into the housing department asking for more information about a certain address, real estate agents, prospective buyers. Having this widget here, if somebody wanted to click on and input an address, they would be able to find parcel data. And this left sidebar keeps going down and includes information about when your collection day is, what school district you are, even what schools you would go to in that area, all the way down to state representatives, city council members. So it's a fantastic resource that we definitely wanted to include right here on the community page so that people have access instantly to this type of information.
Again, also looking at, keeping them and holding their attention more and applying really all of the available resources that we don't generally look at that are available to the public that should be promoted by a city website. Again, very seamlessly, but yet available.
And Anna mentioned the Humane Society before. We wanted to use that as an example of reducing staff time because as it exists right now on the city's current website, there are pages for most of these organizations, but they're not necessarily updated. A lot of that is just time and resources. So we have information from 2019 that's no longer new. Instead of doing that, if you click on the Humane Society now, that link will go directly to their Facebook page where you can see they have a July 16th post. So we're allowing the website to really just facilitate information so that way people can get to content that is owned and updated on a more frequent basis by these organizations.
and I look at this as really, the worst thing that a customer can experience is, well, I'm sorry, you have to hang up and call this other number. With the South Euclid design of the new website, you're providing all of the information that's available in the community that's not necessarily run by the South Euclid city, but is available, and then in an instant, in a click, you're able to get right to their information. So you're providing the customer with that kind of one-stop shopping to all of their needs, which hopefully will effectively keep them at the website longer.
So I included in our project presentation a case study. I'll be passing it over to Ann. She was a tremendous help working with the community center on their page.
Thank you, Daniel. So I had this wonderful opportunity to work with the community center and the director. Just like every project, it's not everybody's, goal to be electronic. Just asked my son last night. I think it's important to remember that, you have an overall goal of moving everything, but there are other areas within the project plan that might be slower to move for a whole host of reasons. So in this particular case study, a challenging and complex consideration of a move from paper to electronic. So the community center is a nice sized community center, responsible for a whole lot of things, from the Memorial Day parade to renting the community center for various events. And they're not necessarily of a public nature. They're private availabilities for staff. So it was wonderful to work with the director, Meg, and hear a little bit more about her community center. Meg had challenging customers. There's nothing like a group of women trying to plan a baby shower. And, the differences in, a 50th wedding anniversary, for instance, challenging customers. And so what was very important, and we thought we'd bring this out, because again, not every department that we were working with said, way to go. We're excited to move to electronic. And so this particularly one, again, not necessarily because the staff wasn't interested, but because of the challenging customers, the customer base. So I established contact and conveyed a collaborative approach. The workforce is diverse. It is really important when any project is, undertaken, that you really review your stakeholders. Where are they at? What is the goal of the project? And really establishing that initial contact where you're conveying a collaborative approach. For the director and I, it was, why can't we just all go back to paper? I say that, in quotes. We enjoy electronics, but again, establishing connection and a collaborative approach at where they're at. It's really important to discuss the project scope. Daniel, South Euclid is, I know he says I compliment him too much, but quite dynamic and innovative. And so kind of understanding, what the goal was, where he has been in terms of moving towards this, and where he would like to be, conveying those things. Understanding the needs of the stakeholder is key. We often think we understand the stakeholder, but generally we don't. And so Meg and I met quite a number of times to discuss the challenging customer. Persuading, negotiating, and coming up with a compromise. So we weren't able to do everything that we needed to do for the community center, but we were able to, one, establish that initial need to keep in line with a very fresh and clean look. When you looked at the community center website, I think Daniel will show you in the screens coming up, but it was important that we kept that in line. However, there are some things that we attempted to do electronically. Forms, if they want to apply for a rental agreement, let's put it on and have them able to do that on the form. And unfortunately, it wasn't going to work. Again, the layout of the community center is different, and the organizing and establishing which room would be useful to this particular event that they're having just needed to be done on old-fashioned paper. So we weren't able to do everything that we set out to do, but we now have a better understanding between what Daniel is doing, as well as the needs of the community center. So we persuaded, negotiated, and came up with a compromise. And I think one of the value added, underestimated value added opportunities with this is that now we've established a connection with Meg. And as things change, we'll be able to perhaps integrate, and in 5 years we'll see some forms electronically. This is an example of the old page. Again, lots of words. We'll move to the new fresher look. And so again, very organization specific, very click of the mouse or of the finger, and you'll be able to get the same information, but on a much more cleaner basis.
And as Ann said, there's the hope that in the future, as the website rolls out, that we'll be able to incorporate more electronic forms and hopefully improve the efficiency of staff members, of processes at the community center.
But again, one of the things that we walked away with is, electronic is not the end all and the be all. Sometimes it's good just to look at a calendar, kind of look at the events that need to be scheduled, and then applying a pencil to the paper.
So as we prepare for launch, and we are nearing launch day, there's still a lot of work to do, more staff members to work with and discuss how they want their department to be portrayed on the website. You saw that dark theme rolled out across all the pages. We're going to add more photos and graphics to it. As part of the ADA accessibility, you actually have to add descriptions to each one of those photos and each one of those graphics. So it's a bit time consuming, and that was a portion that I was going to leave towards the end before we were going to launch. That way I don't have to, duplicate efforts or put too much work into it. Online forms are important, still building those out. Anything that, and you've probably seen it on plenty of city websites, are scanned copies of PDF forms. If those PDF forms aren't able to be read by a screen reader, that's a violation of accessibility. So there are a lot of files that need to be updated. If they're not going to become electronic forms, they have to be at least in a PDF version that could be read by a screen reader. And then uploading files to the Google Drive, it's a bit of a tedious process, but there's retention laws that we have to follow that you've heard from previous presentations, and it's the right thing to do. We should be uploading those for historical purposes. Also, as we prepare for launch, we're preparing for feedback. That includes analytics, the ability to incorporate user comments in the website, and also a communication survey that Ann and I started work on, but weren't able to actually implement for this project. But analytics, this is what it necessarily looks like from weekly reports that we get from Google. We can see how many users there are, how long they're staying on, the number of sessions. As far as getting news out there, this is the news template. We want to own our information, so we'll have upcoming events, but you can also see on the right there will be more or less like a blog session that we can have photos and information directly on the website that then pushes out to our social media, to our e-newsletter. And I included user comments because these websites do allow for people to log in, make a username, and submit comments. But that also opens up a can of worms. We may not want to actually do as we launch the website. It might be incorporated at another time, because just like any social media account that a municipality has, they have to record those. And there's actually companies that will retain all that information for cities for a certain price, but it is something that cities have to consider when they have these platforms.
And also the fact, I mean, we face it, we live in a very different world now. You know, when Daniel and I were reviewing, you know, how are we going to review the effectiveness and how are we going to handle the users' comments? And, you know, I said to Daniel, you know, at this point, everybody becomes a website designer. And so we're looking at the communication survey that we were originally going to use to develop the website a little bit more. Now using this on the back end to really gauge and kind of not necessarily steer them for what we want to hear, but provide some data on, you know, who's reviewing it, how long have they lived there, and, you know, and then overlaying that with the traffic that that we showed you in a couple of the previous slides. So we were able to use, we're going to be able to use the survey, but on a kind of a back end
Right.
analytics side.
I think we'll give some time for the website to make it to the public, but we've never really captured that type of data before about how people are accessing their information, if they're doing it just social media or if they always rely on the magazine. So hopefully in the near future, we'll be able to put out this communication survey so that way we can make a better informed decisions about how we present ourselves on social media and changes that may need to happen to the website. So that concludes our presentation. A fresh new look at South Euclid. Really appreciate everybody. And actually, I want to take a moment and congratulate everybody who went before us.
Yes.
Fantastic presentations.
I've learned something at each and every presentation. And I want to thank you so much for being such a great partner in this project. We pivoted a lot and enjoyed it.
We did.
And now I have a connection who can actually help train me on Google and Google Drive and all of those things that I need to do a better job at. Thank you.
Happy to help. Thank you very much.
Great job. I call you two the Wonder Twins. When I was growing up, there used to be there's a cartoon that was called the Wonder Twins, and it was like this dynamic duo, and they could just adapt and handle any situation we threw them in, and they were thrown in, and they resolve it and come out very successful, but they were adaptable to their environment. And you both have had to pivot through a lot of different adversity and different circumstances, and just the way that you handled it as a team, that you stayed together, that you dealt with adversity, overcame challenges, and continue to do it with grace, dignity, professionalism. And I think that's part of what PMA is also all about, is that you have to just adjust, but continue to stay focused on a task. Your task might change, but still continue to persevere. Also, same thing with Anne. Anne took on a new job right in the middle of this, and so she had additional responsibilities that were put on her plate that she didn't know about when she first started this commitment. So just very proud of the not only deliverable that you produced, but also the way that you went about it. So just thank you very much for dedication and just professionalism and a really good role model for the rest of us. So
Rob, in my day, thank you. In my day, they called it Gumby.
Yeah, exactly. That too. Well, thanks. Alexandra, do we have any questions or feedback or anything for the group?
So no questions so far, so I will wait a moment.
Maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, they covered it thoroughly and
You two are very thorough, so.
Well, if we're waiting for any questions, I just have one more comment, and this connects your project with Mike's and Jennifer's. And I think what we're talking about here is transparency and accessibility to government, and you demonstrate that really well. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so one question, one comment. So Jennifer says, great job. Just curious, what is your budget?
Budget for building out the website?
Mm-hmm. I would say yes.
I'm assuming that's what she's referring to.
Typically, if you contracted that out, it would probably be between $20,000 and $25,000.
Yes.
But thankfully, I've been working on websites, and WordPress is fairly easy to use. So we're doing everything in-house. So
Yeah.
I've been building out the website now for about a year is when I initially started it. We're, I'd say 90% there. So if we really wanted to knock it out within a 6 to 10 week time frame, we'd have to pay somebody to do it. But I was able to have these connections, use it as our capstone project. But it's all done in-house. I'm the sole person leading the project.
Yeah, I priced them out in 2014 for the city of Olmsted Falls, and they were anywhere from $10,000 to $40,000. And that was in 2014. That was a long time ago.
So I'll be asking for a raise.
Yeah.
All right, so no more questions, just one comment. Tony says, as a resident of South Euclid, thank you for this.
You're very
Thanks,
welcome.
Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
I'd like to bring Councilwoman Andrea Mitchell to the podium, and her concept also spreads a spotlight on her city, but she has a unique approach. The title of her project is called Home Base, where past and present define the future. So Andrea, take it away.
Greetings, everyone. Well, when thinking about history, there are few stronger quotes than this 1938 one attributed to Marcus Garvey. History is made every second, is every day. And a lot of unique history was made last year. We were just talking about pivoting in our last presentation. Today, I had to make history. I had the presentation set up in a completely different area of our building, and I had no Wi-Fi service. Many of us had to embrace technology in a major way last year, and me right now. And Public Management Academy 6, our cohort, is a part of that history from last year. 123 hours. So what am I talking about? On September 17th, BRZ, Alexandra, and Dean Madden joined us as we began a discovery of self and others. Some found that they were introverts, Amber. Some found that what they already knew, that they were extroverts, Andrea. We arrived today 3 trimesters and 123 course hours later with these presentations. As you heard, I'm Andrea, and thanks for joining me on an expedition of details, discovery, and potential in Warrensville Heights, Ohio. According to the US Census Bureau, as of April 26th, the US population was 331,449,281. This is a very large place, the United States. However, as large as it is, many people experience loneliness, especially last year. Terry, if you're listening, Amber, Gavin, BRZ, everyone, I hope you're with me knowing you are not alone. I am here with you. Though we're far apart, you're always in my heart. My heart. But this quote is attributed to Marcus Garvey and is very important to this presentation. There are approximately, and I think I had said 300 and what was my total number? 331,449,281 people as of April of this year in the United States. But you are not alone. I'm gonna sing again. I am here with you. And though we're far apart, you're always in my heart. Ohio, the heart of it all. We know this. And again, as I said before, Bob Taft, I know that Mike DeWine is our governor and Bob Taft used to be our governor, but the sign says it all. Ohio welcomes you. With its big heart, Ohio offers an awful lot. I said that you're not alone. In Ohio, there are 936 cities, villages, and townships. Good morning. I'm Andrea Mitchell. As I was introduced, I'm a councilwoman, but more than anything, I'm a resident of Ohio, and I'm a person who really cares about our history, where we are, where we come from, and what we're doing together, and especially where we're going. 702 of those cities and/or villages and townships in Ohio follow general law or statutes provided by the Ohio Revised Code. This is important, and you'll see in a few slides in a little while why this is important. 234 of those cities, villages, and townships, however, are very important because they're chartered municipalities. They're no more important than the other municipalities, but by having a charter, they follow their own guide map, if you will, a guide map that all the residents have decided is important. And this is how we want to follow. This roadmap is what the charter does. It determines who does what. It defines our local government. It shows who functions in what ways, what powers, what laws, and the structure of our government. As a local elected official, knowing the power of a charter is very important, but it should be important for everyone in a municipality. In those, as I had said before, 123 hours and 3 trimesters, we covered a lot of ground. In addition to understanding ourselves and others, we looked at strategic management and different ways of conceptualizing information and sharing with others. With this project, what we're looking at is something that is called, something that is really focused on the SMART model. With this, we'll be looking at the S, the specific, modifying the historical perceptions and enhancing the knowledge of Warrensville Heights, examining 210 years of local history, providing access to historical documentation, artifacts, and events, and more. The P would be providing linkages with a shared past that we have. And that is why this is relevant. And as far as the actionable or the time-based, the T is important because we want something that is going to take place, not just talk about it, but to be about it. So we're using SMART objectives to identify something specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based, as we've discussed during this cohort. So this examination will take us a lot further. Home base is historical-oriented municipal education. Every person, every place has a story, and each story is part of that shared history. It's part of that foundation. On the screen, you see a map of Cuyahoga County, that foundation. Encircled is Warrensville Township at its origin. Home base is a way to embrace and preserve that history that we have. More than an outline for a proposed historical society or a vintage car show on the second Saturday of August. Home base is a way of celebrating who we were, who we are, and where we're going. It's a design for education, understanding, and intergenerational engagement, preserving living history and planning for the future. So we see this on the screen, and we're looking at the county and our origins. And then we move a little further. Beginning in 1807, Daniel Warren came from New Hampshire, as did a lot of the early settlers in this area. He built his home, and then he had his wife come, and they started a family. Strangely enough, or interesting enough, his son, one of his first sons that was born, was the first person to die in this area. The residents and settlers who began to come into this area identified him as the person who was here first, and later coined the phrase Warren's Village, which became Warrensville. Built in 1854, and arguably probably the oldest residence, continuous residence in the city on Warrensville Center Road, is the Eastwood House. If you are traversing through Warrensville Heights, Ohio on Warrensville Center Road, you will see it standing there. Very interesting is one of the first people on the council when it became a village in 1927 was Irwin Eastwood, a relative or descendant from the Eastwood family. The Eastwood name is important in Warrensville because it covers a portion known as Eastwood Estates off of Harvard, the border that's shared with Shaker and is also shared with Cleveland. You run into Eastwood Estates very quickly when traversing through Warrensville from the west. In 1952, about 100 years, almost nearly 98 years after the Eastwood House was constructed, Eastwood Elementary School opened, and there's a street and a lot named after this family. 1927, as I said before, we were incorporated as a village, and the first council meeting was held. This is a picture of the Warrensville Heights Village Hall circa 1933. Now, where was this located? It was right near where Conrad's or a tire store is across from Amazon now. Really interesting how things transition from time to time and place to place. From the 1920s to the 1940s, a little bit into the 50s even, Warrensville was known as the geranium center of the United States, and they had the rich soil and the dedication of the residents led to what lasted for more than 2 generations. As of today, there's only one greenhouse in the city. The growth was continued by post-war migration. Documents, the city government came together and they said they wanted to do more. New neighborhoods began to grow, neighborhoods along Warrensville Center Road and from the Shaker border were reflected in the documents that are on the screen now. Not always pristine, and the only place, not the only place that was into gaming and gambling was North Randall, as it had 2 racetracks. But Red's Barbershop at Miles and Center Road, right by the overpass, was not just a barbershop to cut hair, but it was also where people cut a good time. A lot of gaming took place in there, as well as some betting, and some bookies used to like to spend a little time there in the 40s. The city continued to grow through the 40s. The Shakerwood Estates along Warrensville Center Road, close to Shaker, they share the border with Shaker, began to burgeon, and as the growth took place and wonderful things happened in Warrensville, we also see everything wasn't always sunshine and roses. A pumper truck in April of 1949 overturned on its way to a fire. Unfortunately, you had 2 calamities at that time, the truck as well as the fire. Music Carnival, some may have known about this, opened in 1954, and it was a very unique venue where you had productions and people from around the country and the world would come on stage to perform and also for plays. It was a theater in the round, a unique concept to the United States. This was adjacent to the performances in other parts of Cleveland. But nearly 200,000 people will come every summer to see performances at this tent. There was nearly every single seat had a wonderful view, and no matter where you sat under the tent. Even though there were some calamities with weather, they rebuilt it every time stronger. Here's an example of a ticket. As an aside, I was in a conversation with my mother, and my mother and father were able to secure a babysitter, so they didn't have to give up that strong $7 because tickets were $3.50 and it was non-refundable. And they were able to see Sammy Davis Jr. for the first time in their own city at Music Carnival. Music Carnival ended up closing to the front row, but the memories remain. Later, in in the 50s. Ground was broken across the street from where Music Carnival used to be at Ellicott and Warrensville Center Road with a new village hall. The city continued to grow, and it was a one-story village hall. And a lot needed to take place in that building, including the discussion of becoming a charter. As I mentioned before, the residents wanted to vote and did vote on changing it because of their growth from a village to a city, and they wanted to be a chartered municipality. So a charter review committee was established. People voted to do this, and as an aside, I don't know how many people know, but what connotes a city versus a village? A village has less than 5,000 people, and a city has more than 5,000 people. They had exceeded that number, and they wanted to continue to grow. This is a picture of the council in 1960 in May. These clips came from the press archives, and it's important to see in 1960, and actually before 1960, Jessie Johnson on the far left was a woman who was a very active part of the council, even though they called her Mrs. Jessie Johnson. In many cases, they referred to women by their husband's name. She was a big contributor to the activity of the council. A lot happened later that year with that movement. Warrensville Heights became a city on the football field. The band played, fireworks shone, and celebration took place. And it was a wonderful occasion, celebrating the growth of the city and everything that was going on. Ladies and gentlemen, we need a home base. The neighborhoods continued to grow. There was change. We had different types of living took place, from residential housing, shared housing, neighbors coming together. The city started to grow and flourish in the 60s. So much so that City Hall needed to expand. In 1966, a new upstairs was added to the municipal building, as well as a new police department and jail added to the rear of the building. That gave way to something very interesting. One of the council members was inspired, as happens, and wanted to run for mayor. The existing mayor, Mayor Rasick, also ran. After the very big turnout, 40% of the registered voters, or 40% of the people in the city actually voted, and Graybo won by only 54 votes. Population continued to grow. People were appointed. Hattie Prince was appointed. Was really interesting. This is one of my classmates' mother. I had no idea that she yielded any power. As a council person, I know she didn't, because we don't yield any power. But the city grew to its peak in 1970 at 18,925, nearly 19,000 people, and a lot more things began to take place. I-271 corridor by BJ's now is what you see on the left, and on the right is fire station number 2. It looks like there was a fire there, but it really wasn't. That was just debris from a delay, and it later opened in 1972. That whole corridor is right along I-271. All of that growth, continued growth and development in Warrensville led to so many things, even things that people didn't realize. In 1972, more than half of the team, 7 of the 12 Cavalier players, lived in the city of Warrensville Heights. One that you see on the screen now on the right, Austin Carr, is still a resident and active in our city. The Tiger Dolls were very important. They're now called High Steppers, but the Tiger Dolls began a legacy that continues to this day. They're called High Steppers, and they're part of this band that is known and the legacy that has been created. As an aside, on August 1st, our internationally celebrated band director, Don Sean Wilson, formerly of Shaw High School, Terry, I'm sorry about that, became the new band director of the Marching Tigers. We have a lot to look forward to. We have a lot that we have come from. We need a home base. Annexation continued the growth in the city. If you see where Amazon is now, there is development along miles. That area was annexed in 1972. The forces, the safety forces began to reflect the growth in the community. Our current chief of the fire department, his uncle was in 1971 became the first African-American firefighter, and George Townsend became the first African-American police officer. The numbers of the ranks increased and grew. People came together, friends indeed, helped friends in need, neighbors serving the community and enjoying themselves to do great things. Another one of my classmates' father was sworn into city council, and I asked my parents, well, when are you going to do that? And of course, the answer was never. It was really interesting, and to see this slide, this handsome man is no relation to me, but he served our city diligently, and he was relatively young when he was first sworn in to protect the citizen's voice and serve the community. Continued growth along the corridor of Northfield Road, bowling alleys, ice skating, hotels, motels, and activity began to take shape from this once rural area. And neighbors saw the value of working together and in the community. Greg Reese was a librarian who went to the hospitals, both Brentwood and suburban, and visited people when they wanted to read books while they were in the hospital. On the right, you see Kit Horn and Lamont Lockhart. They were known as Salt and Pepper. And this is during a cleanup day in one of the neighborhoods, getting young people involved in keeping the community clean. As an aside, Lamont Lockhart is now retired from GCRTA and had been a police chief in Woodmere Village. But I knew him as an older guy in the neighborhood when I was little, and I believe he worked for Orkin before he began his career in public service. We need a home base. Although the typo is on there from the Cleveland Press, what we have here is annexing land in 1980. However, it took about 11 years for the Civic and Senior Center to open. We need a home base. Whether by sky or land, Warrensville is your place. We need a home base. I remember being in high school, seeing little kids from all over Northeast Ohio tracing through the hallways, going to our planetarium. This is Warrensville. So what makes a home base unique? I'm glad you asked. You see, I wore my hat today. I wear a lot of hats. There are three main things that are involved with home base that makes it different. One, it is interactive, part of a living history. Every person, every place contributes. Community members, the merchants, students, and passersby. All the content that's part of home base is interactive. It's from the past and from today. It's also intergenerational. It involves people of all ages. As a quote from our superintendent, Donald J. Jolly II, an alum of Warrensville, we will teach middle school students how to conduct oral histories. The students will be able to interview different members of the community and build pride along the way. The proposed historical commission will have members of varied ages. So what is this? Let's continue. It also has a legislative component, and this part is very important. It's designed for action, as we saw earlier in our SMART objectives. It's time-oriented and it's time-based. What we want to do is have the city council review, discuss, and hopefully pass the information that you'll hear in a few minutes on creating this home-based, historic-oriented municipal education is a way for Warrensville Heights history to find a permanent home here. On August 10th, we're going to have a committee of the whole. The council will convene and we'll discuss home base. So what's the actions? What are our next steps? Thanks for asking. Thank you, Amber. The next steps are, one, to include our history or some information about our history on the city's website, because currently it's just not there. And hopefully within a year of passing the legislation, look at the following. Develop a separate website or virtual portal for the archives and the podcasts and the oral histories on our website. And the website could be tied to this separate portal of information. Identify a physical space for people to convene, to meet, discuss, have events, store items, and really to engage about the things that we've learned. So where could this be? Possibly at the old City Hall, possibly at the Eastwood House, who knows? Also, to create a 7-member historic preservation committee. This is very detailed and is comprised of 6 appointed community members, perhaps 2 from the business community, who knows? But with at least 1 member being younger than 50 years old, and at least 1 member being a resident for more than a generation or 20 years. 4 members being appointed by the council and 2 members being appointed by the mayor, and then 1 city council member. A mix such as this will give you that rich tapestry that will help create that home base and that historic preservation, because so many people will have a story involved. And the 5th step is to designate or hire a staff liaison to provide assistance, help the commission with research and grant support, help the commission with administrative resources, keep them tied, and updates. Provide regular updates to city council and administrative staff and the executive staff. Perhaps this could be funded by, in part, a historic preservation grant. Who knows? But what we do know is this: a people without knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. It can't grow. Home base can be those roots. Many sources were used to compile this information, and they're on the screen right now. But also, I wanted to share that many stakeholders are engaged and could be engaged by this, including our school district, our library, Cuyahoga County Public Library, Warrensville branch, and our business community. So many people could be and will be stakeholders in our history, because home base is where past plus present define the future. So am I done? You ask. Well, is this the end? No, my friends, we've only just begun. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Councilwoman. That was fantastic. You are a phenomenal storyteller, so you definitely have a gift for that. Just so you know, Rob had to step away for a business lunch, but he watched the majority of your presentation and he said, fantastic job as well. So to the audience, feel free to send in your questions now for Councilwoman Mitchell, and we will go ahead and ask her those questions. And also too, you know, I mentioned this during our practice sessions, but the visuals are absolutely fantastic. It's just so cool to see those clippings, those newspaper clippings, those pictures of Music Carnival, and to really hear and see the history of Warrensville Heights. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, thank you. And the pictures help tell the story, but the business is to create something that will last. Historic preservation is so important.
All right, so it looks like we have a comment from Scott. Scott says, fantastic presentation, Andrea. You clearly do a lot of public speaking. Your comfort with it is evident. Great job.
Thanks, Scott.
A couple more comments. Daniel Subwick and Ann Donegan say preserving history is an amazing project. Oh, actually, Ann said that. So yes, it is. Angela says that was very engaging. As a resident of Warrensville, I was amazed of the history. Michelle Phelps says, great job, Andrea.
And Michelle Phelps is over our Alumni Association. So way to go. All right.
All right. Any more questions for Andrea? Going once, going twice. Oh, one comment. Shanae.
No comment from Terry.
Shanae says, great job, Andrea. I love how passionate you were in your presentation. I could see you are invested in the preservation of the history of Warrensville Heights and the overall community. Scott says you and Amber should form a singing duo. That would be great.
Good afternoon. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a wonderful lunch. And I just want to say thank you for coming back. I'm not sure what it is outside of your window right now, but it's gorgeous down here in the world headquarters. And it's a Friday afternoon. So we have one more presentation, but we saved the best for last. And I can't wait to see what Angela and Ashley have to offer to us. But I wanted to say before we start, pass the baton to them, that it made sense to start the day off with CMSD or start the program off with CMSD. And I just wanted to end with them as well, since they've been such great partners. So I'd like to pass the microphone, the virtual microphone, over to Ashley and Angela. And their program today is going to be the topic of the Cleveland Metro Schools Operation Work Order Process. So Angela, take it away.
Thanks, Rob. Good afternoon, class. My name is Angela Barnett, the Fiscal Specialist for the Division of Safety and Security with the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. Our project focuses on simplifying the work order request process and implementation of a work order software tool. We'll tell you about that dude in a minute. I will be sharing with you and pointing out some key factors as to how and why we arrived at the decision to implement this process. Our presentation overview, who we are and what we do. Our current process, which is our problem. Our action plan, our timeline, the benefits of our new order, what's next, and any questions you may have. Who are we and what we do? The CMSD Operations Department motto is, the school day begins and ends with us. Our mission, to provide a caring and effective infrastructure that makes a premier education possible for all Cleveland scholars. Our goal, to perform our mission in a manner that makes others study us as a national model for success. The Cleveland Metropolitan School District Operations Department consists of 7 divisions. We build their future, with our building programs. We repair and renovate their buildings with our trades department. We deliver and move their supplies with our warehouse team. We transport them with our transportation department. We provide fuel to promote successful learning for them with our food and child nutrition program. We provide a clean learning environment for them with our facilities department. And last but not least, we protect them with our safety and security team. Here you will notice this button that's on the screen that our COO, Pat Zahn, issued to all 1,300 CMSD operations staff members. And it states, here to serve you. And as you can see, everything we do in the operations division is a service to our staff, scholars, and families of CMSD. In line with the goals of the operations department, the primary goal of this project is to provide customer satisfaction, increase efficiency and productivity, improve communication across the operations division, and of course, cost savings to the district. Okay, with all that being said, let's take a look at the current work order process. Let's just say something needs to be repaired or implemented a work order process at your school. An email, call, or text to report the matter comes in from the building custodian or to the building custodian from whoever, the principal, a staff member, or whoever. The building custodian cannot fulfill or solve the matter, then he or she will reach out to the facilities manager. The facilities manager will try to assist the custodian in resolving the matter. The facilities manager cannot assist the custodian in resolving the matter. If the facilities manager cannot assist with the custodian in resolving the matter, the facilities manager will decide if the matter should be assessed by the trades team, reach out to the appropriate trades foreman. The trades foreman will address the matter or dispatch the appropriate supplier to address the issue. Okay. So now let me give you a detailed example of how a request can come in with this current process. This is an email from, let's just say, Jane Doe. We blocked out names for privacy issues, privacy matters. Let's just say Jane Doe requested several patches of that needed to be repaired to the playground. Okay, the email came through on April the 14th. And as you can see, he ended his ask, can we get a work order in to have this repaired? Okay. The email went to, let's just say, Fred. Fred sent it to, lifted it up to somebody else and gave somebody else's name and said that person can assist. I'm sorry. And now it goes to April 15th. Good morning. Please reach out to Mary for details and proceed with the work. Now, all these people are involved, and who knows if these are the correct people to get in touch with. Okay, this current process, there is no complete communication between the building custodian and facilities manager about the task that needed to be completed. Requests often fall through the cracks. Emails get shuffled around all the time, whether it be a paper email on your desk. We offer 365 through our email. We can have 100 email threads on one email, and it's so hard to get to the very email that you need. It will take you a long time to get to that email, and Ashley will discuss that later. This process is real inconsistent. Does not provide the requester with the status update. Added pressure on the facilities manager, as you read the work order process. I said the facilities manager's title on numerous occasions. There's no tracking system for work orders. There is no accountability. Let me point out that there is no accountability. That email went through so many dates and times that we still don't know if it was completed. Here it is, September, and we still don't know if it was completed. This picture that you're seeing on the screen is the perfect picture for how we don't want our customers to feel on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so here's what we came up with. We reviewed our current process. We identified some steps in the process that needed to be refined, added, or removed. We had several meetings with the following teams: our operations leadership team, our facility managers, our facility administrative staff, and our IT department. And currently we are developing the implementation of what we come up with. Okay, so now, with that being said, let's discuss our here to serve you model. Does any of my process that I went through serve our customers with the here to serve you model? I don't think so. Okay, so I'm going to turn the screen over now to Ashley, and she is going to come on and explain our benefits of providing the district with a new work order process and tell you about that dude.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ashley Moore, Executive Assistant to the Chief Operating Officer of the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. As Angela shared, CMSD has a very tedious and ineffective work order request process. With an organization this size, we needed to find a way to streamline the work order process while improving communication across the operations divisions and improve our communication with our customers who we serve every day. In partnership with Cobalt Group, our project management consultant, the operations team selected Do Solutions as the supplier for an operations management software. Do Solution is a provider of software designed for operations. So, as it says on my screen, who's that dude and what is dude going to do for CMSD? Do Solutions will make it easier to submit, prioritize, and complete work orders in an organized workflow, provide real-time updates, allow tracking of work order requests, reduce time, which will result in a cost savings, and will make operations easier for the unsung heroes who manage maintenance and facilities. And I'm just going to shout out our facilities managers because they are really our unsung heroes, because we have said their names several times. Facilities managers, facility managers, they're the bridge between our other divisions within operations, the custodians and the principals. When there's an issue at a building level, the facility managers are called in to address those matters. I'm going to take a step back. Make it easier to submit, prioritize, and complete work orders in an organized workflow. Right now, our current process does not support that. Provide real-time updates. So let's take a step back and think about the email Angela read. This custodian sent an email requesting for a work order to be put in for the repair of a playground. He had no idea who he was even he sent the email to his facility manager, but had no idea who was coming to repair, if parts had to be ordered, because I'm sure we are not sitting with playground parts in our warehouses. And allow the tracking of the work order. So once he submitted that work order or that email to his facility manager, he had no idea where it went. But Dude would allow for him to go back in. Oh, I sent this request 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. Oh, hey, my facility manager reached out to a foreman and the parts are coming in a few weeks. Reduce time, which will result in a cost savings. I'm just going to say the cost savings. It took me probably an hour and a half to locate an email that will fit for this project. I'm not going to tell you how much I get paid, but Dude could help reduce that cost, the time that it took for me to look for that email. Because imagine if it was, hey, did we fix that playground? And then we have to go back and look for it. And by the way, the playground did get fixed because an email came across yesterday that the vendors will be out to repair the playground in a couple of weeks. So I'd like to walk you through what the custodian would do once Dude Solutions has been implemented. He will go to his Office 365. And I'm sorry, it says calendar, but if you look under, it's Asset Essentials, which is really the module that we selected that's under Dude. He or she will go into their Office 365, which we did a single sign-on because we did not want to have staff having to remember another log-on. Select Asset Essentials. He or she then would select Create Request. Then they would select their location, which will be whatever building they're located at. They will select that building, their site. And then they will select the specific location in the building. In this case, it would have been the classroom. I'm going to apologize in advance. This is a training tool, so it wasn't specific to that email request, but it's just giving the basic gist of navigating through Dude Solutions. So they will have the option to select the room. And then they can select a specific location in the room. And I'll drill down to being very specific as into the location in a room shortly. They will select their issue, which will be their work category, the problem, and then enter the type of work that they're requesting. And they also will be able to enter a desired completion date. And that's very imperative because let's say, like, for example, school starting in a few weeks and a principal wants to have an ice cream social. And he or she has gone to a custodian and said, hey, I like the playground cleaned up for our ice cream social. So that custodian would be able to go in and say, okay, mid-July, I like this playground cleared up. So he can select the date and the time his desired time that he would like the work completed by. And then again, in the email, he uploaded photos. He would have the opportunity to upload photos so that the facility managers or the trades can see exactly what he or she is talking about. So once he hits submit, it goes off to the facility manager. So, as I said before, Selecting Dude Solutions as a supplier was the easiest task in this project. Dude Solutions is a tool. It won't fix the process. However, Dude will help manage this process. As you can see up on the screen, we started this in about September of 2019. We contacted Dude, we received a proposal and went to our legal department. And then finally, January 2020, the contract was signed. We were ecstatic and we were ready to go. February 2020, we hosted our first small in-person brainstorming session. And then we all know what happened in March of 2020. COVID-19 shut us down. So we lost momentum in March. And then in April, we started to have small individual training sessions with multiple departments, mainly focusing on our facility managers and our facilities administrative staff. And we all attended a Dude virtual conference because we were still in the thick of COVID, but we just were determined that we were going to get this tool up and off the ground. So as you can see, we lost momentum again in about June. We lost momentum due to the facility managers, our building custodians, focusing on preparing school for the potential start of school in August, which it didn't happen, but we still had to prepare as if it was going to happen. But we weren't just sitting in the background doing nothing. So as I said, I would address that drilling down to the specific room. That's what that with Cobalt Group, the facilities, admin staff, myself, and a few others, we really did a lot of behind the scenes building up those specific room numbers. This project brought out a lot of outdated practices that the districts have. But don't worry. It evolved into several other projects. Hint, hint. So if there's any other CMSD potential leadership candidates out there, we have some projects out there for you. But one project that we could not let fall by the wayside was training our custodial staff. So just a little back history. We had to go to our union because our custodians are union. So we had to let them know that we were bringing on a software tool. So the union also took an opportunity to say, hey, our team needs some training. So we took that opportunity to build out a training program for our custodians, which we are launching in September of 2021, with the hopes that we could have our custodians as expert users in January of 2022 and potentially push this out to our principals in the spring of 2022. But that's potential. We'll have to see. So what will be what's the benefits of Dude Solutions? So again, going back to that email, which was a real live email. And as Angela said, that email was sent in April. It is now August. And I just said, I just saw an email with a status update, and that custodian was not on that email. It was a whole nother group of people. So Dude Solution will provide real-time updates to improve the communications between our customers and across operations. And it provides visibility across operations. And what I mean by the visibility, Dude has several different modules, and it could link what transportation is doing. It can link what they're doing in safety and security. It just, once we wrap our hands around using this tool, I think that it will really set the CMSD operations department off. And it's going to streamline the process, and it's going to increase productivity. It's not going to have me looking for emails for 2 hours or trying to find out the status, because again, like I said, just even with that playground email, it came across my desk. I was never even on the original email. So just imagine that custodian has no idea. So what's next? I kind of jumped ahead, and the what's next would be the training of our custodial staff and the launch of making them expert users and the potential use of getting this out to our building principals. Any questions?
Sorry, my buttons weren't working there. I'm not sure what happened here. It must be Friday afternoon. Well, thank you very much, Angela and Ashley. I do have some questions in regards to like some of the things with COVID, derailed your process. So what kind of things did you experience there, and how did you like overcome them as far as the team development and solutions and opportunities? Like, what was that experience like from the COVID?
So it derailed us because we did not have technology. Operations, we're a reactive group of people. We hit the ground running. So our facility managers, we had to really work with them, getting them on camera and the technology, because we had to really shift to virtual. And that was one of the biggest challenges, making sure that they had the technology that they needed. It was many a times they were running between desks because someone's microphone didn't work, or they couldn't get the camera on, or we, have had phones to laptops so we can hear responses. So that was one of our biggest challenges with just trying to connect the team to keep the planning process going.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing I see as a theme with the CMSD projects this year, in the sense of trying to create some transparency, kind of make things more efficient, using technology to try to make sure that everybody's staying on the same page. And I guess my second question is, how many like employees are there with educators and different folks in the departments? It's a pretty big operation, isn't it? Overall, like.
It's roughly around 75 to 8,000 employees.
Wow. Right. So if somebody puts in a request or an email and says, "Hey, I need something fixed," that could easily get lost in the shuffle somewhere. And not only tracking that, but then the resolution, and make sure that it's done and accounted for, and then making sure that it's done in not only a timely fashion, but it's more as far as efficiency is concerned as well, as to make sure it's done the right way the first time. So I applaud you for tackling this big problem. And I think it kind of hits your the button there about the customer service and being responsive. I think it definitely hits that mark for sure.
So Rob, let me point out that you stated that all of our teams everybody was aligned with improving the process. So what the district is really on board with is getting rid of paper. And so if you see all our teams, our processes is trying to alleviate a lot of paper. Mm-hmm. Because once you print that email and put it on your desk, we all have a ton of paperwork and projects on our desk. That email is lost. Mm-hmm. Or the word of mouth ask is not efficient either, because we all have a ton of things to do. I may forget that somebody asked me. I'm always saying, please send me an email when they ask me to do something. Just shoot me an email because I'm going to forget. Yeah. So that's what we're trying to alleviate those inefficiencies.
Well, my comment on email is I get really frustrated with it because everybody is sending emails and no one talks to anybody anymore. But my point about emails is that we're overwhelmed. We're bombarded with emails, and then you get the email chain going, and then you have 100 emails attached to one theme, and then which part of that theme, or which part of that chain was I supposed to read? Number 47, number 84. I don't know which response is in there. And then if you get in trouble, like, well, I sent you an email, like, well, I got 4,000 emails just last week, so I'm not sure which one of those. Were you 3,247? Because I might have missed that one. So I think that this is a great tool, and I'm not being obnoxious. And for real, like it's impossible to keep up with everything, and especially if there's different voices coming into that conversation at the same time. I think you have to have something that you can track, and also just everybody knows where to go to as far as a source for where that issue is being resolved. So I want to say thank you, and I get that it's a clear, consistent theme, and I think it makes a lot of sense because it'll save time, it'll save paper, obviously, and then also get things done, more quickly. So
and time is money. It'll save money. Don't forget that.
Absolutely. Well, Alexandra, I think we have some questions or comments poured in, so I'm gonna pass the baton to you.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. So we do have 3 questions so far. So the first 2 questions are sort of related. So Shanae asks, what pushback, if any, came from the custodial union?
We didn't get too much pushback from the custodial. They wanted training. They wanted training. And another, a tidbit of a pushback we did get was we did issue cell phones because of the taking a picture and capturing the picture. So they didn't want to really carry the cell phones, but it was imperative to help with that turnaround time of submitting the work request and taking pictures. It's easier sometimes to send a picture of a pipe to our plumber foreman versus him having to get out to a building. So that was about the only pushback that we did get from them.
So looking outside of the custodial union, Scott asked if you received any pushback or resistance from any other parties.
Well, we haven't received any pushback from any other parties because it's still internal within our operations department right now. When we did go to the IT department, they are shopping for a new, I guess it will call a ticketing system. So they were impressed. So if they've reached out to Dude, we don't know, but they were quite impressed with the software.
So Jennifer says, great job, guys. Sounds like this is really needed. How did you find Dude?
So every year, our chief operating officer attends the COO conference, and Dude speaks at that conference. And also, we are a part of the Council of Great City Schools, CMSD is, and quite a few of our counterparts in the Council of Great City Schools use Dude solutions, and they are highly recommended, and they are actually a co-op. We did not even have to go out and to bid for them because they were a part of the whole Ohio co-op. So we were able just to select them off the list.
So far we have one more question and one more comment in the queue. So to those of you who are watching, last call for questions and comments, and I will read the next 2 ones here. So Deputy Chief Dotson asks, how many work orders or permit requests would you say Dude Solutions could process?
So according to their module, we have unlimited. But CMSD in itself, we process thousands of permits a year, per school year, and permits is actually a module for Dude, and it would tie back to the building custodians and our facilities team as well.
All right, so as of right now, we just have one more comment, and it's from Debbie. She says, "Great job, ladies."
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, going once. Oh, here's another question. Okay, it's also from Shanae. So you mentioned that other departments at CMSD can use Dude as a management tool for work orders. Would there be a cost for other departments?
Yes, because with Dude, they have modules. So right now we've paid for the Asset Essentials modules that's right now specific to the work orders and the facilities piece. But we could add on, as needed as we want to build out other modules.
Excellent, thank you. And Deputy Chief Dotson also says, "Great job."
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so it looks like that's it for questions. So I will turn it back to Rob. Great job, Ashley and Angela.
Thank you.
Thank you. You did a great job, and it was a great way to tie up and put a bow on this wonderful 2-day event. I'm so proud of everyone from today and yesterday, and I just get tickled by how folks really rallied around the cohort. They rallied around their projects, and they put their heart and soul into everything that they did as far as the different topics were concerned. And not only just a way to use the tools like the SWOT or logic model, or are looking at strategic planning purposes and reviewing things and trying to be more efficient, effective. But, this is something that you could just go through and kind of give it the college try. But I really felt like people really embrace these topics and are trying to create change and innovation in their organization and in our region. And I just want to say thank you for, again, putting that much effort into it. The class, we had our regular time in the sessions, and then there was the pre and post work, but then the projects were above and beyond that. And so I just want to say thank you on behalf of our team and the university and the college for, making that commitment to us and also into your organizations and then finally your careers. And I wish you the best of luck as you move forward, as you progress, and keep this momentum going because you're all change agents within your organization. And people are looking at you and up to you to kind of be role models on how we can be doing these things in the future. So this is just a start. And I look forward to hearing about what the impact, and the momentum that you have facilitated in your organizations. So thanks again for all the hard work. I want to thank Lamont Dotson, who's joining us now again, for his support, not only for bringing everybody to the cohort again from CMSD, but again, as our program advisor for the statewide advisory board, and just the influence and the motivation and your guidance and leadership to help us mold this program. I really appreciate it. And for all those guests that are here, we appreciate your support and commitment, not only financially, but the release time to allow these folks to go along this journey with us. I want to go over a few notes as far as next steps before we part for today. This concludes the formal part of our presentations, but we have one more deliverable, and that is the written report. Each project team or individual, the project is still required to complete the project portion of the written part, and we would like it to be submitted within the next month. Today's August 6th, so if you could submit that to us for review and approval by September 6th, that would be great. So right around the Labor Day holiday. There is a 9-section report. You should have the template. If not, we'll make sure we get it out to you as far as a guide for how to complete the written report. And then also you will receive your evaluations or your feedback from your peers. You should have already received those if you went through it yesterday, and you'll get your evaluations from today as well. So we'd like you to complete that written report within the next month. so that we can get everything put together for our graduation, which is scheduled for Friday, October 1st. We're still working out the details for a good graduation ceremony, but I would like to have an in-person ceremony. Hopefully, if God willing and the COVID doesn't get any worse, I would like to celebrate everybody's accomplishments in person, if we can, if that's possible. So a reminder to continue to work on the written report, and also we will be sending out some transcripts for everybody that went through the Public Management Academy, and if you've already gone through the Leadership Academy, to double check and make sure you're on track, either to matriculate up to the Leadership Academy portion to complete that, or to actually, if you're totally done, to actually join our cohort for the Ohio Certified Public Manager program, which will also graduate in October. Alexandra has put a great tool in the within our system to offer the makeup classes. So we'll have any kind of schedule for future cohorts in case you missed a class or need to make up something or want to attend as a refresher. So we have plenty of those available. So just either check the Blackboard or let us know if you're need to make up a session so we can make sure that you get registered for that. Leadership Academy number 31. Leadership Academy number 31 starts on October 28th, and it is going to be a hybrid model. Again, our hope is, if the pandemic allows, that we want to go back to some type of in-person programming for our Leadership Academy model. And so the idea that will start on October 28th and 29th. Those will be in-person sessions, and the program will run through next August if you are still interested and need to take the Leadership Academy portion. We're going to launch that marketing the week of August 16th. And again, that program starts on October 28th. And then a couple notes on Public Management Academy. Number 7 is currently en route, or it's kind of already running as we speak. So if there's classes there that you need to make up that are like between the middle and the third trimester, that's the classes to make up with that cohort. And Public Management Academy number 8 starts on September 16th. So the train keeps going, the bus keeps going. So feel free to join us for those classes or for anybody that might be interested in the program. So anyway, I think I'm done with my announcements. Again, I want to say congratulations. Thank you for being part of this journey. Thank you for being part of our family. I want to thank Alexandra Higgle-Timms for everything that she's done to support us along the way. Alexandra, I'm not sure if you would like to say any closing remarks to the team before we exit.
Thanks, Rob. So it's just been a pleasure working with you all throughout this process. I've really enjoyed interacting with each and every one of you, and I hope that we can work together in the future. I'm excited to hear about the progress on all of the projects that you have been working on and implementing. So please, please, please stay in touch. Let us know what we can do at the center and at the college to support your efforts. And I look forward to hopefully seeing you all in person, fingers crossed, at the graduation. Thank you.
Thanks, Alexandra. So on the written report, I said one more thing to say is that we have that template to help you fill it out, but we also have some great examples. PMA number 5 has completed their process, and we have at least two or three examples, but we have a variety of different samples to take a look at. So if you're interested in that, we have that available also on Blackboard. And then the last plug I'll say before we part ways is that the program is equipped and has been approved for academic credit. Both tracks, both PMA and Leadership Academy, offer academic credit. So if you're interested in pursuing that down the road to continue on your journey with Cleveland State and our college, please let us know, and we can get you in contact with our academic recruiters and our advisors, and to help you with that process as well. So with that, I'm going to bid you a wonderful weekend. Congratulations. Hope you get a chance to celebrate and relax. And we'll see you at graduation. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.